to the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act in the following manner. First, on January 4th, 2019, a copy of said notice was mailed to the Star-Ledger and the Tri-Town News. Second, on January 4th, 2019, a copy of said notice was hand-delivered to the clerk of the Township of Howell. Third, on January 4th, 2019, said notice was posted in the office of the Planning Board and on the bulletin board in the Howell Township Municipal Building, 4567 Route 9, Howell Township, New Jersey. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code and your safety, please be advised that this facility is designed with 2 emergency exits, which are on your right at the front and rear of the meeting room. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Boyle's been excused. Mr. Dorado?
Here.
Mr. Husser?
Here.
Chief Kudrick?
Here.
Mr. Nicastro?
Here.
Mr. Schneider?
Here.
Mr. Seaman?
Here.
Mr. Everett's been excused. Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Present.
Chairman Nash has been excused. And Vice Chairman Tannenhouse.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, could everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? And a moment of silence for our first responders and those serving abroad. Chief? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, Eileen, we have an approval of minutes.
We have no minutes this evening,
Any vouchers?
no vouchers.
Any correspondence?
I do have correspondence. I have an email from Mr. Alfieri. He asked that the matter of Gill Petroleum, which is on tonight's agenda, be carried to March 21st without further notice. He has also copied Mr. Gadarowski, who is the objecting attorney, on his email, and they are good through the end of March.
So there's no need for an extension of time?
No.
Okay.
Okay, I just need to make the announcement, Mr. Chairman. Case number SP-1006, Gill Petroleum, be carried to the board's March 21st, 2019 meeting, beginning 7 o'clock here in the main meeting room. There will be no further notice to property owners.
Okay, do we have any resolutions?
We have no, wait, I have one more.
Oh, sorry.
I sent out today, which I don't know if everybody had a chance to read, but I did leave it there. The township clerk sent out ordinance number 019-12, amending Chapter 188 Land Use, Article 16, Planning Board, Section 155, entitled Alternates of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Howell. Basically, it has to do with the appointing of the 2 alternate members of the Planning Board. Thank you.
Yeah, so this ordinance just does one thing. Previously, the alternates, apparently under our ordinance, were appointed directly by the mayor. This changes the ordinance so that the 2 alternates are appointed by the council. The planning board's role in a referral of an ordinance is simply to determine whether it's consistent with the master plan or not. This, while it is a land use ordinance in as much as it deals with appointment powers, has nothing to do with our master plan. So it's not for us to say we like it or dislike it in terms of how members are coming to us. Our role, which is consistency with the master plan, is really not implicated here. So I would just recommend that there be a motion that the proposed ordinance is not inconsistent with the master plan.
Sure. Okay. Under that recommendation, does anybody have any questions? Comments? Okay, we just take a,
No, it's a motion, a second, and a roll call.
okay. We have a motion?
Motion that ordinance is not inconsistent with the master plan.
Second?
Mr. Dorado?
Yes.
Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Nicastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Everett?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Tannenhouse.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, any more correspondences?
No further correspondence.
Any resolutions?
No resolution.
Okay. When we get to the applications, did we make a decision? Are we going to shift some of these around?
We can. I see Mr. Cohen's here, so we can start with his.
What's that? Who are we starting with?
That's the Bird application, the second
Okay.
one on the agenda.
Rosemary Bird?
Yes.
Okay. So I will be recusing myself.
You have to handle this.
So I think, Mr. Chair, there are several recusals that I've been made aware of. So, Mr. Acting Chair, yourself, are there any others?
I'll be recusing myself as well.
Okay, any others?
Myself.
Okay, 3. Do I hear 4? No?
Who's the fourth one?
No, I said, do I hear 4? All right, so 3 recusals. We'll mark that for the record. Everyone who is recusing has to leave the dais.
Yep.
So you could sit in the public, you can go to the back.
I'm just going to sit out in the hallway.
That's fine. Okay, so our chair and our vice chair are not here for this application, so what we actually have to do is have a brief election for an acting chairperson for the Bird application. Can only be a Class 4 member. So is there who are the Class 4 members, Eileen?
It's everybody except the chief, and Mr. Everett is a alternate.
I'll make a motion for Paul Schneider to be acting chairman for this
Is there-
application.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, can you call roll?
Mr. Dorado,
Yes.
Chief Kudrick,
Yes.
Mr. Nacasio.
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Seaman,
Yes.
Mr. Everett,
Yes.
and that is everyone.
Okay, Mr. Schneider, you can stay there, or you can take the chairman's seat.
Thank you, gentlemen. Application before the board is case number SD 2984.
No, the second one,
8-5.
Paul.
Pardon?
8-5.
Which one we're doing?
Rosemary.
Rosemary
Bird.
Oh, okay. Correction, case number SD 2985, Rosemary Bird. This is a minor subdivision. It's a minor subdivision. Application of Rosemary Bird as applicant and Stanley Dunn and Rosemary Bird as owner seeking minor subdivision approval to re-subdivide 3 existing lots into 3 new lots by reducing the size of 2 lots and conveying the additional area to the 3rd lot. If approved, vacate the buffer easement on 2 of the lots on premises known as Block 42, Lot 70.01, 70.02, 70.03, 501, 503, 505, Newton's Corner Road. There are no additional site improvements proposed with this application. This application was scheduled to be heard January 17th, was moved to February 21st. Counselor?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Todd Cohen, attorney representing the applicant, Rosemary Bird. I have with me this evening Jeff Carr, as our engineer and planner. I have a brief opening remarks, and then I would swear in the witnesses, mark our exhibits, and then we could begin testimony. That's okay with the chair. Yes?
Take care of
Good to go?
Nice.
This property was previously subdivided in November of 2013 into the 3 residential lots, you see before you this evening. There were 2 2-acre lots and 1 larger flag lot containing 5.76 acres. The condition of that approval also included a 50-foot farmland buffer along the entire northern side of the property, as the lot next door, Lot 69, is farmland assessed. And even though the board was apparently split on that issue, the buffer was a requirement of that approval. In any event, my client perfected the subdivision, created the 3 lots, and constructed 2 single-family residential homes on the front 2 lots, and began a farming operation on the rear 3rd lot.
Oh, actually, we
Can you hold on a second?
just need to take a moment. Our acting chairman had leave on an emergent issue. Okay, you can continue, Mr. Cohn.
Thank you. Okay, and now that they have lived there for the 3.5 years, they realize that a much better utilization of the property would be to reduce the size of the front lots and increase the size of the farm lot. And our planner will address the reasons why we believe that is a good thing. But in reality, all we are requesting is a lot line adjustment of the existing lot line boundaries. And that's pointed out in Mr. Vanderkoy's letter of October 17th. And from the street level, you would never be able to tell the difference if my client's request is granted. Normally, when an applicant requests a reduction in a lot size, it's to gain an additional lot, which is not the case here. We were starting with 3 lots, and we'd like to end with 3 lots. We would just like the entire farm operation to be on 1 lot. As to the applicant's request to remove the 50-foot farmland buffer, at least along the northern portion of the property, proposed lot 706, we feel that that buffer should not have been required in the beginning, and we'll testify as to the reasons why. Basically farmland to farmland, and we don't see the reason for that buffer, but we'll expound upon that as we testify.
So just, Mr. Cohn, are you saying that you believe as a legal matter that the ordinance never required it, or that you believe that a variance should have been granted initially?
That a variance should have been granted.
Okay.
So with that being said, I would like to have my witnesses sworn, and I'm going to have Mrs. Bird testify a little bit about the history of the property and what's going on now, and then we'll have Mr. Carr wrap up with the planning testimony.
Okay, we'll swear in Ms. Bird first. Okay, if you could just stand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, and you can sit down. Get close to the mic and state and spell your name for the record.
Okay, yeah, it's Rosemary Bird, Rosemary, last name Bird, Bird.
Thank you. So Ms. Bird, you, on February of 2013, your family purchased this property, the whole 10-acre parcel, and it was in the name of your son, Stanley Doman, is that correct?
Correct, yeah,
And at that time, you had obtained a woodlands management plan for the entire 10 acres, correct?
correct.
And then in November of 2013, this board granted a subdivision approval for the 3 lots which you have today, correct?
Yes,
And in order to build the homes for your family, at that time and obtain bank financing, you put the lots in 3 different names, is that correct?
correct.
Okay, and you now presently own the
501 lot.
501, well,
Yeah.
that's the address. It's
Oh,
not
okay, the
it's
70, well, the one that's going to be 7005.
Correct. And your son and daughter own the lot across the street where the other house is now constructed, is that correct?
Yes,
And you and your son own the
Farm
farm
lot.
lot together.
yes,
And then, I believe it was 2016, you obtained a farmland assessment for the rear property, is that correct?
I believe that was the first year that we did. It's been 18, 17, at least 3 years already.
And
Sorry, which lot was that, Todd?
that's the rear.
For the- Yeah,
7, I'm sorry, what's the name of that lot? That's correct.
Okay.
yes, 7006.
And if the board sees fit to grant the relief you are seeking this evening, what is your plan, your immediate plan for the farm lot?
Oh, the immediate plan is, we have plans for a greenhouse already. It's a year-round for aeroponic tower gardens that we'll be using for vegetables. So it'll be in a greenhouse year-round. We want to put that actually on the piece of land where we're moving the lot lines, so that In other words, that way the greenhouse will actually be on a farm property, not on my daughter's personal property. You know, next to her house. It's gonna go in that place, but instead of it being on her personal house lot, it would be considered farm, farm lot, and then we'll have insurance and stuff for when people come to, collect vegetables and things.
And if you're not granted this relief, the farmhouse the greenhouse would have to be back on after the residential lots, is that correct?
Yes, it'll be quite far back, which will end up, costing us a lot more for the utilities as well to be, brought that far back into the property.
So it wouldn't be feasible to construct a greenhouse, right, due to the unique depth of the property, and it wouldn't be practical to extend the utilities that far back.
Right,
And you would need water and electric for the greenhouse operation, is that correct?
yes,
And your intent is for the entire rear lot, if the relief is granted, to operate as one farm.
yes.
Todd, before you go forward, can you point that out, maybe just for me? Where's the greenhouse now? It's existing?
It's not up yet.
It's not existing.
Not yet. Jeff, could you show them on the map where that is?
Point?
Yeah, if I point, I don't know if it'll show up on.
No, it doesn't show up on that.
Okay,
Hold on. We didn't swear you in yet.
oh,
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state-
Jeffrey J. Carr, C-A-R-R, principal with firm of Lindstrom, Deason and Carr.
Jeff, can you just put your professional
Qualifications.
credentials?
Yes, licensed professional engineer, licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey, practiced in this profession for over 35 years. I've appeared before this board on a number of occasions, as well as many other boards throughout the state.
Yeah,
of
I'll
New Jersey.
accept your credentials.
Thank you. The lots we're talking about, I'll describe them in the whole. On the left front would be one of the houses.
that's situated.
From the map, it's about almost halfway back. On the right side is the other single-family house with a lot. And down the middle is the driveway. And then the rear of the property is the farm area right now. And what we're talking about with the greenhouse would be the back of the right-hand lot, which is proposed, which is
That square.
existing, proposed lot 70.04.
But it's not built yet, so explain to me why, if it's not built yet, why it couldn't go on to the lot before it was subdivided. I know the attorney was saying something about cost of and feasibility.
Well, just on the depth of the lot there, the road would have, the utilities would have to be extended further back into the site to put it basically in the middle of the farm or at this end of the lot. What they're trying to do is increase the farm area and put the farmhouse or the greenhouse closer to the road, closer to the utilities.
Other than that, are there any wetlands, any other constraints that would prevent that from,
No
No.
wetlands at all?
No.
I have a wetland certificate.
And the greenhouse would comply with the setbacks?
Yeah.
So 75 feet, front, rear, side.
I'm sorry,
Yes, we would need to comply with the setbacks, yes.
Well, I guess the question though was not do you need to? Yes, you would need to. The question was, have you actually, planned it out to make sure that it does?
Well, no, there's no plan of it as of yet, but obviously if we didn't meet it, we'd be back before the board in order to come in for variances on that, and that's not the intent.
but isn't the premise of the whole line movement is because you want to build this greenhouse, that we don't even know where the greenhouse is going?
Yes, it's going to go in that square. Can I show? That's what I'm saying. This is all blueberries right now.
Yes.
We planted 2,500 blueberries on the one side and we plan on adding the rest of this field. So this will be all blueberries for the pick your own garden. And then the greenhouse would be here in this space, right here.
I can't see this space, but my concern is where everybody keeps pointing to, and I can see, it's within 75 feet from the lot lines.
Well, I know that this striped line is 50 feet, so 25 more would be back here, so there's room to do that. It's going to be a 30-foot wide greenhouse. It's on?
Yeah.
Okay. It's 30 by 60.
Mr. Cohen, just on the statement that Mr. Carr made before, that if it doesn't comply with the setback requirements, you'll be back here.
Well, I
Is
think
it-
we could definitely make,
Well, just before we get to that, I mean, are you sure that's true? I mean, if this has right to farm act protection, would you have to come back here at all? You know, isn't it just under whatever the best management practices and whatever, approvals you have from the county ag board?
I believe that's correct, but my client has, we've had this discussion, she has no problem, and we realized that came up in a discussion earlier, that we're gonna have no problem complying with the requirements of the septic. As a condition.
Okay, then that would be, if there's an approval, that would be a condition of approval?
Correct.
That, despite what the Right to Farm Act may say, that the condition of this approval is that proposed greenhouse will comply with the 75-foot setback?
Yes.
I have not yet put the paperwork in for the permit yet.
Certainly, I mean, you can see from the subdivision plans that clearly, I mean, the plans show the 75-foot setback, so clearly we could meet the 75-foot front and rear and side setbacks. That's not an issue on this property.
Jeff, maybe if you just began your presentation and gave the board the dimensions of how deep everything is and what we're trying to do here, it might be clearer to the board.
To describe the lots again, proposed lot 70.04, the house on the right-hand side, that is currently a 2-acre site. It's 145 feet wide by approximately 600 feet deep. A mirror image of the site is the same for lot 70.05, 145 feet wide and approximately 600 feet deep. And then a rear lot is 5.76 acres and 340 feet wide. What we're simply requesting from the board is to maintain 3 lots. They'd still be the same ownership, but take the back piece of each of the 2 single-family lots and then transfer that to the farm area to get more of the farm area involved in there as opposed to the single family. So we start with 3, we end with 3, and what we're doing is reducing the size of the lot. 2 acres is required, it would be down to 1.25. But in essence, we haven't really changed anything as far as the character of the neighborhood.
Wait. That's his observation, because technically you're now creating 2 non-conforming lots.
Well,
So you're
that's correct.
changing the mere fact that you're now going from an ARE2 zone to now making 1.25. So I'm going to want testimony of why this enhances the area better than now making 2 non-conforming lots.
I can do that now, I can do
Yes,
it
yeah,
later.
might as well start the
All right,
presentation.
I can, generally, the way I would explain that is, and you're right when you look at the single entity of a 1.25 lot versus a 2-acre lot, and why would the board be inclined to grant a variance for an undersized lot? Typically, what you see before you is a situation where somebody has property and they're subdividing, and they may take one piece of property and subdivide it into 2 or 3 pieces of property that are undersized. And certainly that has merit in what you're saying as far as changing the density, changing the character of the neighborhood. In this situation, it's not quite the same. We certainly have enough area overall for the 3 lots. We start with 3, we end with 3. Now, on a map, I can show you all these dimensions, I can show you the square footages, and you can relate to that. What's different in this situation is the perception, and that's really what it is when you're looking at a neighborhood. What changed in the neighborhood? And effectively, nothing has changed in the neighborhood. As you're driving down the street, you'll see exactly what you see today. You'll see that once the subdivision is complete. Regardless of where farming ended or stopped, wouldn't be any different different to anybody and the surrounding neighbors as well. There's no impact on the properties to the right or the left or the rear of us. The density doesn't change. It's simply increasing the farm area. If you look at what the zone is, the AR2 zone, that's essentially what this zone was created for, maintaining farmland and open space areas. I think we're in keeping with the ordinance and promoting the ordinance and the master plan, because that's exactly what we're doing. We're making more land available. These lots, whether they're 1.25 acres or 2 acres, they're not farmland lots. While the 2 acres may meet the requirement for that zone, they're not farm pieces of property. So we are promoting the master plan and the ordinance by creating more farmland area, more open space area. So I think it goes directly to the positives.
Pete, you want to opine?
I mean, I think there's a couple different perspectives this could be viewed from, but you know, on the one hand, it's enhancing farmlands on the overall tract. Number of lots isn't changing. On the other hand, you are increasing the intensity of use on the residential properties by virtue of reducing the overall lot size. You know, so the lots are significantly undersized. I would say, you know, you're reducing the lots from 2 acres down to 1.25, which is, I don't have a calculator at hand, but that's a significant reduction, maybe 35% or so. You are increasing from 5.76 acres to 7.27 on the other lot, which brings it into conformance, but the net result is you're going from 1 non-conforming lot to 2. So just for the board's consideration.
Mr. Chair, I think in terms of testimony, I'd like to hear, for the board's edification, from the applicant's planner. We've heard about the lot that's increasing in size. But what's the purpose of our ordinance in creating a 2-acre lot minimum for the residential? And why does reducing that beyond what the minimum, or less than what the minimum requirement is, still promote whatever the goals were that ordinance sought to achieve?
That's an excellent point.
Every now and then.
Any time ordinances are stricken with regard to whatever it be, lot dimensions, setbacks, they have a purpose. The purpose of setting, in this case, the 2-acre standard is so that you maintain larger area lots and you reduce density. Though you have to take that generally as a whole in the neighborhood. The entire zone would have to be considered when you look at that requirement for 2-acre minimums. It's not that every lot, some lots are bigger than 2 acres. You generally don't like to have lots or create lots that are necessarily smaller than that. But what you're trying to do is create an area of the town, in this case the 2-acre zones, so that you don't increase density. If the board were to create minor subdivisions continually on some of these larger properties, and you continually granted variances for undersized lots, then you effectively have changed the density of that from a 2-acre zone to something less than that. That's not the case we have here, because what the board has in front of them is a property that has 3 lots now and will continue to have 3 lots. In fact, there's no way that this can subdivide. Now, your planner had indicated that you increase the intensity. On a general planning or legal perspective, when you change a lot size from 2 acres down to some other size, then legally you're you're intensifying the use. That doesn't mean that the use, so to speak, is more intense. It's still one single-family house, all right? It's still a large lot, and it's still surrounded by open space. So effectively, we haven't changed the intent of the ordinance by creating this open space here as part of this lot as it would be part of this lot. It's the same thing. We're just, in my opinion, supporting the master plan and supporting the ordinance
by creating something that the whole intent is, and that's to have farmland in the area and open space.
So the land that proposal in that square, what's on that land now? Is it vacant land?
The land that we want to reduce the size of, they're trees, they're all trees.
It's vacant.
And those trees, I mean, theoretically, my client could leave everything the way it is, farm, take the trees down, farm those parts of the lot, and work in conjunction with the farm. Where you come into a problem is 10 years from now, or Mrs. Bird moves to Florida, or her kids move to some other state, and you have to continue the use of the farm, it's going to be very, not practical to sell that as one lot. When 3 lots, I mean, your farm operation is going to be on 3 different lots as opposed to 1. And we're just trying to make it so that in the future, there's 2 single-family houses and 1 farm. And the farm serves obviously a lot of purposes in the RE2 zone. I mean, this lot, if you look at the lot, it's extremely, what is it, 1,200 feet deep or so, or more? It doesn't have the frontage, and that's why the variances were granted for the lot frontage in the first place. And if you stood on the street, which I did today, I'm sure some of you have, you looked at this property, you can't tell where those lot lines end and where they're going to begin and where 2 acres is and where 1.25 is. And if you drove down the street, you'd even see more clearly. It's more of a practical reality than anything else.
That argument, however, is that the case right now because of the interrelationship and the familial nature of the 3 ownerships? If one of the lots got sold.
Family farm, it is their
Yeah, but like,
vision and their dream to have this.
no, what I'm saying is if you sell it, fences could go up and it does, it can be more clearly, demarcated. So that's the way it looks now, but that's not how it has to look.
I can't argue with that, no.
Yeah, but effectively, you'd still have the same look in that, regardless of whether this area, right now, the back piece is actively farmed. If that farm area extends further, whether it's on this lot or the farm lot, is effectively the same. You really haven't changed anything. And actually, in my opinion, I think you're guaranteeing more so that this remains a farm, because this will become part of the farm itself. If these are ever transferred out of ownership, then any farming that may encroach on these because it's the same family will more than likely disappear, because somebody on this 2-acre lot is less likely to farm a small piece of that property.
But just on that point, though, I just want to reiterate, the board's decision is not based upon who owns the land and what the relationship is between the 3 owners. It's based on what the land is, no matter who owns it.
Well, right, I was just responding to your point that I thought that you brought up the point if they were sold,
Right.
it could look differently.
Yeah, well, because one of the points we were asked to take into account is as you drive by, you can't figure out right now where one property, starts or ends, and I was just saying.
Well, that's true, but you could,
Yeah.
without the lot line change, a person can put a fence anywhere they choose to. So, I mean, in theory, they could put a fence here and do something back in here, or put the fence back in here.
And that was my
do
point,
something.
that's not
But
necessarily,
that has nothing to do with lot lines.
okay.
This person on this house here could choose to do so today. Put a fence at this point right here where the proposed lot line is, and do something else back here, whatever they choose
No,
to do back
that's
there.
exactly the point, that asking the board to take into account as part of their evaluation that you can't discern where the lot lines start or end is a snapshot in time. It doesn't have to be the case. And I think that's, your testimony now agrees with that. Okay.
Jim, how much of a rear yard exists today from the houses to that existing lot line?
To the existing lot line, there's roughly 340 feet from the house to the rear property line. And we will be proposing approximately 116 feet. So it's still a substantial difference area.
And the only person, neighbor affected by that would be the lot in Judith, correct?
Correct.
I guess the question I have is if you're looking to reduce the area so that farming occurs strictly on your back lot, whether or not the board requires a farmland buffer on these lots now.
For what?
The 2 existing homes, whether or not they need a farmland buffer if they're going to be residential in nature.
Well, let's just, before we get to whether they need one, let's talk about what's required.
But they don't have one now.
So, Mr. Cohen, maybe you guys want to deal with that affirmatively. What's required by way of buffer under the ordinance and why you're seeking relief from it?
There's not enough land.
You mean to the 50-foot buffer that we have on the north side of the property?
No, the testimony here is a little bit different than I think it was a couple years ago. And so now I think what's coming out, or at least is being testified to, is that this flag lot is a farm lot. Part of the reason that you're looking to vacate a portion of it along the, I think it's the northern property line on Lot 69, is you're saying it's farm to farm. So my question is, now when we reduce the size of these lots, they're residential in nature, they're not farmed, understanding, right now, they're under a common ownership, but technically, I
They're
believe
not under a common ownership.
our ordinance requires a buffer when you would join a farm.
You're talking about if we reduce the size of the lot, we still need a 50-foot buffer on the lot to residential lots that aren't there now?
Yes, your residential lots to the active farm.
Yeah.
That would be along the rear yard of the
You're
residence.
talking about the rear yards here, yes.
So that, on the line,
Right.
on the property line.
No, it's a
Well,
50
So how is that
buffer
different
along
from
the
the
entire
50
lot line.
for now?
It's going the other direction.
Right,
This would
so
be-
it's,
Don't understand what you're saying.
so you're talking about the back, it's the entire perimeter.
Well, that is, going this down. In theory, you could say this down.
I think that's a good gift. See what they're asking.
But I put my son's name on my house, which I'm going to, then the back lot and our house lot are in the same names.
Doesn't
That's
matter.
Yeah, it does, because they are the same owners.
Doesn't
then.
matter. You sell. You sell.
Oh, okay, so because you can say, okay, so I have to put 50-foot buffers across,
Not a bad gift.
but they're gonna get rid of
They want us to use the buffer. They want to use it now. Now it's residential.
This is different.
Because when we came in, it was residential, now it's residential. Not a bad gift, though.
To here to these two.
Right.
This is a lot. Oh, right, because this is.
those just 50 feet of my land on the side.
They have that 50 foot buffer.
No, on the resident, on the house lot.
So they don't want it here, and they don't want it here. If they had it
That's fine,
here.
there's 50 feet of trees. I wanted,
the trees in.
I wanted to do it anyway. Okay, that's okay.
It'd be on the residential.
The 50 feet of trees would be, stay on the residential lot.
But to my initial question about like a pool or
On
something.
the resident, on the house lot.
Yeah, because the residential, that's fine.
They'd be pinched.
It would be the same as the area on the right. I got it, I understand what you're saying.
Laura, could,
The 50-foot
make
buffer
sure
would
we're
be
talking
under,
the same thing? I think we are.
you're talking about 50-foot buffer placed on each of the two residential lots against the lot line.
Very similar to what you have on Lot 69, where you're seeking on Lot 69 to vacate a farmland buffer.
Right.
It's the same on your residential.
Right, so the residential lot would be the one with, encumbered with the buffer.
Correct.
Yes. That's-
So you're saying within the proposed, but 114 feet or whatever that is,
Yeah.
50 feet of that would remain farmland buffer?
Yeah.
For our ordinance, yes.
Right.
That's fine.
My client would have no objection to it. But we definitely would like to discuss the vacation
Well-
of,
I need to understand that a little better for the, if there's an approval. So what is it that your client does not object to?
As Laura pointed out, a residential lot to a farmland requires a 50-foot buffer. So in theory, we would require a 50-foot buffer on the back of these lots as they're subdivided. And so out
What are
of
the
that
two-
115 feet that I described, that's vacant right now, that's wooded, that would remain a buffer area. And we
So
would
you're
have no
talking
problem.
about
That
7
would be
point-
encumbered by a buffer.
You're talking about the border of 7.04 and 7.05 to 7.06?
Correct. So roughly
What?
145
So-
foot by
so-
50-foot deep buffer.
What's this one?
The rest of it goes way on farm, right?
back to each of those lots.
Now, that buffer may change where that greenhouse goes 50 feet further back, correct?
No,
No,
No, the greenhouse-
Setback.
I know it's coming down.
yeah,
So it's on a
setback.
residential lot.
Right, and then the greenhouse would have to be 75 feet beyond that
Beyond that
property
line.
line
Correct.
in order to meet the setback requirement, yes.
Jeff, while we're on the topic of the farmland buffer and our request to vacate the 50-foot on the farm to farm, could you just address that, please? As to why that,
Well, on the original subdivision, the board imposed a buffer restriction along the entire northerly property line, because the adjacent lot 69 was assessed as a farmland. Since that is no longer, since it would be a farmland lot, we would like to request to eliminate that buffer on that side.
Mr. Chairman, as it relates to farm, I believe, the board could actually waive that requirement now. The purpose of requiring the 50-foot farmland buffer was to provide a separation between our farm uses and residential uses or other uses. So where the farm abuts the farm, I would take no exception to it, but I think we need to talk about where your residential lot abuts the farm.
or what we had talked about and what we would request as part of our application with regard to the residential lots of the farm, I realize they cannot eliminate that buffer as it's done. But if lot 69 ceases to become farmland, we would like a condition in our resolution that we could eliminate the buffer at that time and then have to go to council, obviously, to get it approved. But we don't want to have to come back, we would not like to have to come back to the board a third time. And as long as everybody, and we could live with that, I would love that as a condition of our approval if the board saw fit to grant the release we seeking. And then it would only happen if and when
The use ceased.
the greenhouses to the right of us no longer exist.
Just to build off of what's been said, the buffer in the residential lot, lot 70.04, well, I didn't survey the lot, and I'm not, it was kind of tough to tell based on a site visit. It seems like there may be an encroachment into the buffer in a portion behind the house.
Yeah,
Looks like gravel.
My understanding, and I believe and I'll have my client testify directly if I misspeak, that the township, they did come out and let me have her testify.
Okay.
Could you explain the discrepancy that what happened with the farmland buffer and
point it,
your interaction with Mr. Savino's office?
yes. We still have trees that are in this whole back part, so this whole piece is still all wooded.
Excuse me, can you speak into the mic? We have to get you on the record.
Is this better?
Yes,
Ah,
thank you.
there it is. Okay, so we do have trees still about this far on the back lot, so that part is fine. And this part is wide, but the boys, when they were going, it was very difficult to keep track of where it was, and they did go into here a little bit when they were taking the trees down for the field. But as he waited for this meeting, because if we're going to be eliminating this whole buffer, we're going to be taking down the rest of the trees anyway to put the blueberry, the other side of the blueberry bushes in, so we'll have, the entire field blueberries.
And your agreement with Mr. Savino was if it wasn't eliminated, that you would have to replant the buffer. Is that
Right. I would replant whatever
Okay.
if it was not approved tonight.
And the portion I was talking about is actually on the residential lot, directly south, I guess, or directly east, rather. In other words, in a...
That part is fine. There was no encroachment on that, behind my daughter's house.
Yeah.
I think it was just a fire pit. Somebody made a comment about a fire pit being
Yeah.
in the backyard.
One of the issues, though, it looks, and this would have to be confirmed by actually measuring it, but it looks like there might be gravel that is closer than 50 feet, within 50 feet of the property line, and the ordinance requires either grass or ground cover, some kind of vegetation, and...
I'll have it checked in. We'll move it if
Oh.
it's over the 50 feet.
Okay, that would be fine. I would think if it were moved and restored to lawn or something else that...
It's understory under huge trees. It's not going to be grass growing there. It's just going to be woodland.
Whatever would be
Yeah.
appropriate.
We have actually wild blueberries under there as the understory right now.
Okay. And two minor issues that also tie in with this. One, well, I guess there's two accessory sheds in the front yard area. In other words, close, in front of the house, between the front facade of the house and the street line. One of them also appears like it could be partially within 50 feet of the property line, and both are within the front yard area. So I just wanted to make the board aware of that, of those accessory structures. They look like sheds.
Okay, if for the wood sheds, we're talking about, wood construction, I think they are definitely within the amount of space, but then we just had one greenhouse-looking one, it's just a flimsy
Like a
nylon type.
circular roof.
Yeah, and that's going to move to the back. It's only right now storing our towers that we, have to store over the winter. So once we get the greenhouse up, everything will go in the greenhouse, and that'll even go away. It won't be there at all.
Okay. And so if that one moves, with the other one, is that proposed to stay where it is today, or no?
Which?
I guess the wood shed?
The wooden ones, I think they're okay. But you think they're within the 50-feet buffer area?
They're
brown ones?
They're close, so I
I'll
would...
double check it,
I would recommend...
if I need to, I'll move it, make sure it's not in the 50-foot.
Verify that, and if it's in violation,
Then it'll be moved.
Perfect. And then the other consideration is whether or not you want to request relief for it being in the front yard area. It's an accessory structure in the front yard, so that would be the other consideration. It's an accessory shed in the front yard area.
You're calling my front yard the one that faces Newton's Corner? You're calling that the front?
Correct.
Not the actual front of the house?
The public roadway. So that's all I had. I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Makes it difficult because, with the backyard being so small, with the 50-foot buffer being imposed there, I can't put it in the 50-foot. It's like, where do you put it then?
Well, part of the issue is the orientation, to be fair, is that if these homes were oriented towards Newton's Corner Road, you actually have a very deep lot. And where you're using the shared access, that's not actually a roadway.
No, it's not a
private
private
driveway. So a lot of the relief or the constraints that you're talking about are driven by the orientation that was chosen for the homes.
I think we can agree to a...
Yeah, if I need to, I'll measure, I'll remeasure,
The front yard that we have, there's room to move that.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Are there any questions of Mr. Carr?
I'd like to open it to the board. Is there comments? Chief?
Yeah, if I may, just one thing as a point of clarity for me, with the 50-foot farm buffer, that would be beyond the proposed boundary, correct?
within it.
I'm sorry?
I
So
don't know what...
where the proposed lot lines are now,
If this is the proposed lot line,
correct?
the 50-foot buffer would be between the house and that lot line. So the
So then-
single-family residence,
So then the buffer would actually make the lots effectively smaller in terms of usage?
no.
In terms of usage?
Well, it'll effectively maintain that the wooded areas would remain.
Wait. Let's be clear, because I don't think you answered that question.
Oh, absolutely.
It does make the lot smaller.
No,
No,
Can you use that buffer?
no. That's the
Okay.
whole purpose of it.
Right.
Right,
It
so
does
that
make the
does
lot
So
make
his,
the lot smaller.
no, it doesn't make the lot smaller, but it makes the use of the lot less.
Yes.
But it's a residential lot.
I'm just, yes, we agree to that?
Well,
That's the
you
question he
can't-
asked.
You can't put another house on it,
I didn't say that, nor did he.
okay? I guess.
I mean, it's a matter of interpretation. I wouldn't, as a planner and engineer, I wouldn't make that.
I
Is
think
it-
part of the
I
issue is
wouldn't
the
say that, but
intensity.
yes,
You made a 2 acre to 1.75, and now a 50-foot buffer.
Right.
You now made the
Still your
lot,
lot,
it's
your
still the lot, but
property.
the use of the lot,
Right, you still get to use it,
Is
you
less
still
than-
get to walk around in it, you still get to see it, you still get to maintain it. But yes, you're right in the sense that you wouldn't be able to put a pool in that area. But it's also within setback area, so effectively, you wouldn't be building in that area anyway because you have setbacks that you have to adhere to.
That's a rear setback.
And it's a rear setback, so it's so it's a significant
To be
setback.
fair, I just think it's creating another constraint. We just heard your applicant indicate that part of the reason why is things are tight, and it's because of how the property is oriented. If you kept the lot lines compliant at 2 acres, and a 50-foot buffer was put, if you look up on the screen, on the existing lot line, there's still a lot of property for that residential property to have to enjoy a pool, patio, sitting area, fire pit within this area, if the buffer was imposed on here. And I think that that was kind of the question, or at least
Well,
what they...
yeah, yes, in a sense. There's 116 feet that's there now, is going to be reduced by 50 feet. I think you still have a significant area for putting in a pool, doing any of those things that you want to do. And that's a 50-foot, there's a 50-foot setback in the rear. So effectively, you're just maintaining that as a wooded area as opposed to something where you can clear cut it. And I think that still goes to the weight of what this zone is all about.
Well, you know, sometimes we do have to deviate and make some exceptions. I don't see this changing the nature of the neighborhood or changing anything. And occasionally we do this. We do make some exceptions that will certainly enhance the area, and I don't see any difficulty. I open it up now to the public.
One other question, just, should this land sell, this deed restrictions still apply, correct? So someone coming in, although it'll be pre-existing, it'll still be a non-conforming use, they still won't be able to put a pool or anything else that they want to do?
It
The next
depends, if, part of that depends on whether you grant relief from the 50-foot buffer. If you don't, then the lot is certainly, one of the lots is certainly very constrained, and I don't know what you would really be able to do in the backyard, and the reason for it is a deliberate decision by the property owner. So, you know, it'll be in the deed, someone can find it. I can tell you my personal experience, you know, is that people are not that sophisticated, particularly first-time homebuyers, to know those things, and someone will wind up at a zoning board,
I agree.
you know, in the future.
You finish your testimony, Counsel?
Just a couple of cleanup items from the professional brother. Jeff, in your opinion, is there any need for any additional improvements along Newton's Corner Road?
No, they've been taken care of as part of the original subdivision. No further improvements would be required.
And there was a question, is there need for any driveway screening or fencing for the flag lot driveway?
No,
That's an existing situation for 3 years.
that's correct, correct.
I'm sorry, no, meaning what?
No, there wouldn't be any additional modifications to the entranceway or driveway or screening. None of that would be required. That's pre-existing. There
But
should
I
be
don't know
a
that
lot.
relief was previously granted.
It's not really
Maybe I don't
pre-existing.
understand the question. What's?
I mean, it's on this is a new, although similar to the original lot, and the number of lots are not changing, the dimensions are all changing on the lots. I don't know that you can claim to have pre-existing rights to something when you're changing the dimensions of the lot.
And just
Maybe
to,
you can ask the question again, maybe?
Well,
Maybe I
just-
misunderstood the question.
to be clear, it's at the discretion of the planning board. So when you have a flag lot with a longer driveway, it's whether or not fencing or screening is required. And so that's something for the planning board. Your opinion is nothing's
certainly
required.
certainly that's the discretion of the board. I'm not sure what any additional screening or fencing would do.
What does the ordinance require? It requires the
At
fence?
It says at the discretion of the board,
Okay.
fencing or screening.
Yeah, and I guess my point was that they didn't require it the first time, and nothing changing in the front of the property, if you will, and I was just trying to point out that
Well,
they were trying to keep.
but to be honest with you, like, you can't have it both ways, though, either. That, they didn't require it the first time, so you shouldn't require it this time. But you guys really shouldn't have put that 50-foot buffer in, and we need to have that relieved. You know, you can't take the benefit from the same resolution that you're arguing was in some ways, you know, unkind to your client. But, I think what's necessary, and we heard a little bit of it, is just some proofs, from Mr. Carr. So aside from the fact that there was, previously in its discretion, the board didn't require it, why is that still the case now?
To that point, I'll answer. Certainly, it's the board's discretion how they feel. I think that's somewhat of a general conception of what the board may or may not want. There's no steadfast rules on that. In my opinion, my professional opinion, I don't think anything has changed. And it goes to what I said at the beginning of my testimony, in that basically what you see as you drive down a road here is going to remain the same. The houses are there, the driveway is there, the shift in the lot lines, and any additional farming in here, I don't think changes any screening requirements. These changes here affect these three properties in the rear of that. Again, it's up to the discretion of the board, but my personal opinion is I'm not sure where fencing or screening would be placed to be of any benefit to the public or adjacent property owners. I just don't see it. But again, it's the board's discretion.
Gentlemen, anything else?
I think the buffer that you're talking about, I think clearly there was a change in the status from the original application to here. The original application didn't include this as a farm piece. So the board was rightfully so, per the ordinance, to require the 50-foot buffer on this side here to this agricultural property. That has changed. That is something that has physically changed. Now this is farmland to farmland, and the ordinance doesn't require that, so we're simply asking the board for that consideration.
Mr. Everett, any comment?
No comment.
Mr. McCastro? Want to hear from the public? Okay, I think that
Mr.
this
Senator,
is...
if I may? I just did some quick basic math. Just thinking about the buffers and where they sit and how the lots are used. Being a realtor, these are things that I understand and I talk to people about every day. If you're talking about a 50-foot buffer coming into the properties with 145 feet across, you're now taking a lot that's supposed to be zoned for 2 acres, not actually to 1.25, but functionally to under 1.1. It's actually 1.08 acres. And I'm trying to figure out how to make the best sense of it, and it just kind of bothers me the way the whole thing's laid out. Because I'm thinking long-term, down the road, because eventually these properties are going to be sold at some point in some day, and we're going to be back here doing the same thing, trying to figure out, with non-conforming uses, things get complicated.
But they are conforming uses. It is an odd-shaped lot. They're extremely deep, and we're trying to provide buffers from residential to farm. I mean, that's what
Well, but you are inherently creating 2 non-conforming lots.
I agree.
I mean, and that's just, and again, it's not, it's just thinking long-term. Long-term, that's all.
But they are 1.25 acres. It's not like we're putting them on,
I'm just talking about usable space in terms of, what can you actually do with it?
well, the lots are developed. I mean, the 2 single-family houses and their accessory uses are there, except for a pool.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I just need 30 seconds to be a land use geek. They're not actually non-conforming lots. Non-conforming lots are lots that complied with a zoning requirement, and then there was an amendment, and after the amendment, they don't comply. They're non-compliant lots, not non-conforming lots. Or as proposed, they would be non-compliant lots.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just for the
Open it up
record-
to the public. Is there anybody that would like to ask any questions or of the engineer and the owner of the property? Please step up, give your name, your address, please, and be sworn in.
Okay, sir, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely,
Please
yes, I
state
do.
and spell your name.
Raise that up. Thank you.
My name is Christopher Catalfano. That's CHRISTOPHER CATALFANO. Fano.
And your address?
485 Newton's Corner Road, Howell, New Jersey.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
I currently own the property that is just south of this proposed changes that want to be done here. One of the big things, I have a question for you, which you kept bringing up, is farm to residential, there's a required 50-foot buffer. Am I mistaken from what I heard?
That's correct.
Okay, that does not exist along my property line. The southern...
Lot, sir?
I
This one?
am that lot.
Residential lot, right?
Yes, I am.
So
And
residential to residential.
Yes,
Yeah.
but where your farm
but where the
abuts,
farm is, it's farmland to residential, and which I had an issue when this whole thing was approved. Initially, they had clear cut right along my property line, which destroyed my quality of life over there. All right, now they were asking to move that up further and clear cut again. I mean, as it is, I could see Parkside development, or, not Parkside, whatever, development that's behind me, Crossroads. Now, when I first moved there in 1996, I've been a resident there for 22 years. The board did not take into consideration the alignment of these houses for me. The house setback, the house that Miss Bird resides in actually looks directly in my backyard to my pool. So I have zero privacy now. So this would further compromise my privacy and my ability to enjoy my property. As it is, just with that 50-foot buffer not being there, which I asked and I begged the board for at the time, and it was refused. They gave it to farmland, but they said, it doesn't matter. My backyard is all woods, and I enjoy my woods. I enjoy the deer. I enjoy everything about it. But it got destroyed by them allowing to clear cut up to my property line. I had asked Miss Bird when they first moved in to try to come to a compromise. She refused to talk to me. So there's been a very standoff relationship. Up until the end of the summer, I was looking at blueberry bushes sitting on her technical front yard to her house, to the Newton's Corner side, when the houses should be facing Newton's Corner technically, but they're not. They gave them the variance for that. They gave them the common driveway, and now you want to reduce the lot size, which I am on a 6-acre lot. I have no intentions of subdividing my lot. I intend to enjoy it. I moved to a 2-acre zone for that purpose, to maintain the non-density lots. Now, you already allowed them to shrink the lot frontage to less than 200 feet. My lot is just over 200 feet, and I'm 1,400 feet deep. So I have 6.02 acres, and this would greatly impact my quality of life. And I have real serious doubts to the intentions here. Mr. Carr stated a lot of opinion, and that's all it was opinion. Mr. Carr does not live there. I do. I've been dealing with this since they built the house. I couldn't do anything about it. The board approved them. I let it be. But with the buffers, now, in my eyes, you took away a buffer that I was entitled to and never got back. Up until the end of the summer, August, they planted the blueberries back there, taking them off their front yard and moving them to the back. So there was very little consideration taken towards the preservation of the area and the reason why I moved to such a beautiful area. So
Thank you.
I would like to say that I don't think this is a good idea at all. And if they can't comply to the 2-acre zone, why should I? I have 6 acres. I mean, if they could chop theirs up into 1.25 acres, why can't I? And put a common driveway down my driveway. And then chop mine up, I'll sell it, I'll move to Florida and retire.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to come up, please? Yes, sir.
Nothing was mentioned, now that this pick your own blueberry farm, nothing was mentioned, where are they gonna park cars? For
That's not-
this,
That's not part of this application. That would be probably part of their application to the county agricultural board.
farmland going, so why wouldn't they, where are they gonna park everybody? On their front lawn? As it is, it's becoming an eyesore. Thank you.
Thank you. There's somebody else that, please? Give your name and address and be sworn in.
Yeah, good evening, Rich Mertens, 11 Inkberry Lane, Howell Township,
How do you spell your last name?
Mertens.
Yeah, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, board members. We moved to Howell about 5 years ago, and we moved from Howell Township, and we enjoyed moving to Howell because I saw a issue with the preserving farmland. And what this applicant has done, in my opinion, has enhanced what the objective of this town is, to promote farming. And she has complied to the previous resolution that you set for. But I know this is a family that's moving into this property. I understand down the road you need to have some stipulations on what's going to happen at that point. But at this point, she has her son, her daughter, all on this property, and I think the idea is we want to encourage people like this to move into our town and to promote farming. And as long as they abide by the rules, I don't see any issue why this shouldn't be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to make a statement? Please come up.
Yeah, you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state and spell your name.
Jeff Hodges, Jeffhodges, 22 Bach Boulevard. I represent the fire districts for Township of Howell, fire commissioners, etc. The Fire Bureau as well has reviewed and proposed the subdivision plans. I believe you guys received that as well. And they have no objections to the proposal or use of development of the property as shown. Just wanted to state that to you guys. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public portion. Gentlemen of the board,
Todd, is there more testimony?
I just wanted to put on the record, two things. One, that the Environmental Commission report of 11/14/18 had no comment, and the Farmers Advisory report of 9/27 also had no comment. And I believe they're part of the record, but I just wanted that on.
Mr. Seaman?
You want to walk that 50 feet on the other side?
I'm just thinking.
You want to walk that 50 feet on the other side?
Mr. Dorado?
You have a little bit of concern on the buffers, but being it's farm to farm,
Excuse me, Paul, could you?
sorry, yeah. Just some concerns on the buffers, but the use is basically the same, so I don't have any questions on that standpoint, just digesting the information.
Chief?
The only thing I have a concern about is the neighbor, the first neighbor that came up. Concern with the first neighbor who came up with losing their privacy, and I understand that it's her property, but it's also important to be a good neighbor as well. I don't know if there could be some kind of agreement that could be made so as to not reduce that privacy, his concern anymore. I don't know if that can be done with the property owner, but I think it's good to be a good neighbor and hear out his concern.
Yes, I understand, and I have already dealt with that. I put a shed up and I placed it on my property, so like from my kitchen window, I see my shed, I don't see his pool. That was specifically put up there. I bought the longest one that I could find to give him as much privacy as he could in his yard.
But I
So I
think he's-
cannot see in his yard from my window.
But I think also his concern is the clearing of the trees and the brush. Am I, sorry, are you still here? Yeah.
Mr. Carr? Is that a typical way to provide a buffer, a shed, versus like a fence or shrubbery or something?
It's not a typical, but,
All right.
as far as I've heard about it, I mean, obviously it blocks looking out a window into it, so in
All
that
right.
sense it helps. But I'd point out that regardless of what the board's decision on here, those things occur. They occurred on a single-family house because somebody bought a property, and whether this was one single-family house on this entire lot or not, these things could all occur. Clearing can occur.
Sorry, I understand
pools
it can.
Sheds can occur.
Well, I get that it can occur, but sometimes it's not always the proper thing to do. Right, and that's the reason why we have these
I
discussions.
understand that, and that's
Right.
certainly homeowner to homeowner trying to be good neighbors,
Exactly.
and I totally agree with that. I'm just saying, the board has to weigh both sides of those, and obviously there's controls that the board can put in. Certainly the buffer is gonna help, because that will screen, this house is up close to the road, that buffer will help screen there. So there are some other controls, and I'm not saying the board isn't within their
Purview.
rights to do that, but some of those things that have been talked about can occur no matter what.
Up to the chairman.
Can you reapproach?
Surely. What would you suggest that,
I'm not going to suggest anything. I don't care if she puts up a fence, whatever. On the residential to residential portion, she could do whatever she wants. I personally have planted Leland cypress trees there. I had went out and I purchased 32 Leland cypress trees, and I have planted them along that border to try to regain some of the integrity back to that area. But I'm giving away my property in order to plant these trees to create some sort of privacy without actually putting up a wood stockade fence. I mean, I have a wood stockade fence in the front portion of my house facing Newton's Corner Road, even with the front of my house, to shield me from Newton's Corner Road to my backyard. But along the sidelines, I had planted Leland cypress trees up to the point where they cleared. Now, in the back portion of the property where we have farmland to my woods, which is residential land, it's not farmland, it's residential, it's not zoned farmland, it's not assessed farmland, it's part of my residential property, there was zero buffer given to me. They literally cleared right up to the line. Now, and the other concern, one concern I do have, is how do I prevent these you pick your own people from wandering into my backyard? I mean, I have beautiful woods back there, which I constantly maintain.
Well, that's for an application for another time. I mean,
Right, but,
That can
exactly,
occur in
but
time.
I'm saying, if she wants to plant more trees there, I would be more than welcome to see that. But this shed that she put up is a very large shed, and it's not really a pleasant thing to look at, because it's just the way it is.
You're making a very valid point, and my client's hearing you, and she would not have an objection to putting up additional buffering.
Todd, we can't really hear you.
I'm sorry. He's making a good point. My client understands his point, and we would have no objection to putting up additional plantings on my client's property to block that view for you.
But I think that's something that we need to determine what that's going to be
Oh,
here, that
absolutely.
way it's on record.
No, I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. I'm trying to, want to make sure he was amenable to it before.
Right, right.
now, would there
Are you
be,
talking about from the shed to the back property line? or-
Property line, back from, especially where the farmland adjacent to my property also, which is also something that's a problem.
We're talking about, I was talking about the residence to your
I
residence.
understand that. Now you're and it's adjacent to a residential property.
Right, but usually it's the 50.
Mr. Chair, can I recommend maybe we just take a 5-minute recess, allow this
Yeah.
negotiation to go on, not on the record, and see
Okay,
if there's,
very
you
good.
know, some sort of agreement?
5-minute recess, please.
Okay.
The board will now recess. The planning board will now reconvene.
Chris, why don't you stick around, you know? Mr. Chairman, thank you for that opportunity to have discussions with the neighbor. I think they proved fruitful.
Good.
Jeff, if you could just show on the board what my client is proposing as far as adding an additional buffer for the neighbor.
I think we kind of reached an agreement, basically installing a 6-foot fence from the front of his house, which is closer to the street than ours, and running along the back property line to our property line that's currently there. That'll screen his yard area and his open area there. Of course, the 50-foot buffer that would be on the back of these two lots, and then we would agree to maintain 20 feet of trees on the portion that's going to be,
New front.
hopefully if the board approves it, 20 feet on that portion of the existing lot that would be transferred to the rear lot, so that there'd be an additional 20-foot buffer for an extra roughly 200 feet.
And the third item was that the greenhouse would go
Oh, yeah,
on the...
we would stipulate that the greenhouse would be placed on the north side of the lot, not on the south side of the lot.
Do we have a timeline for when that should occur?
No, I mean, when it would occur?
Right, like within 6 months, within a year?
Well,
I think that's important,
I agree.
right?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
when I
Right.
would purchase the
When
fence.
when the fence would go up.
Okay, I was gonna say.
'Cause you could agree to do it and then just never get around to it,
Then it's
right?
better for her.
Right, right.
Okay, the fence, when would you? Fence.
My son will be back from Afghanistan in March, so he's gonna be starting to take over and work on the stuff. So by the end of the summer,
So no later than when the ground starts to freeze, probably
Right,
up
right.
end of October?
right,
All right, so we give October 31st?
right.
Does
Now I
that
have
sound
to-
fair?
Excuse me?
October 31st, does that sound fair?
Halloween, good time, yep.
Okay.
And then I have to, I have gotten a permit, but I guess I have to get it it expired, I think, to have fence put up.
Sir, do you have anything else to say?
No, if this does get approved, I would like those conditions added to it.
Right.
I mean, I'm
That's the
not
purpose.
crazy about it, the proposal.
It's better than
but
nothing.
Clearly want to make that,
Right.
That would be part of the resolution if it's approved.
Part of the resolution.
I would definitely want that in there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary.
Mr. Chairman, that-
Chairman, you may want that recap, because I don't think Ron was here to get that.
So I got that will be part of the resolution.
Yes.
You want to know what that would be?
I can make it up, but, yes.
My client offered to place a fence along the neighbor's property line by October 31st from the front of his house to the rear of our property line, new property line. And then beyond the property line, in what is now the balance of the lot, there would be 20 feet of trees that would not be cleared. What side of the property is that? So I'm not...
The south side of the property.
South side of the property, along the border with Mr. Catalfanos, I believe that is his name,
Lot 71.
Lot 71. We maintain a 20-foot wide tree line. And that the greenhouse, when and if it's placed, would be on the northern side of the property, not the southern side. Is that right? No?
Good.
Correct.
With all these stipulations, do I have somebody that would like to make the motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve SD 2985 with the agreed-upon stipulations.
We have a second.
Anyone want a second?
I'll second.
Just before we vote on that, there's just one issue that they put it out there, we didn't really discuss it at all, which is like, I guess, some self-executing provision of the resolution which would extinguish the farmland buffer in the future under certain circumstances. I'm a little uncomfortable with that. Even tonight, they came back, we found that, you know, there should be the farmland buffer in other places that they agreed to provide, but, you know, that would not have happened, and we would not have heard from the neighbors if, you know, there was a similar self-executing provision. So the board can do what it wants, but I would recommend against that.
You're talking about the residential lot in the right front?
You were saying that you didn't want to have to come back to the board again, so that if there were changes to the surrounding properties, you would want some self-executing provision of the resolution which would eliminate farmland buffers.
Only on the
I understand, but that's my recommendation about that.
But you're okay with the vacation of the,
That's not whether I'm okay, I mean, that's what you've asked for, that's, you know, that's what they're voting on. I don't have a legal objection if they want to do that. That's, you know, within their discretion. But I do, my recommendation for something that may happen in the future that we don't totally understand, not having a public hearing about it.
Right, and just for clarity, because I don't know that anybody turns these the right way initially. The 50-foot buffer that would be potentially vacated is on the north side of the property, correct?
correct.
Ron, what would be the language for the motion, what you were talking about?
It would be, you know, basically a motion to grant minor subdivision approval pursuant to the request of the applicant and subject to all the conditions placed on the record.
Right.
With the exception that we're not granting relief from farmland buffer for some future, you know, event.
But that's only for the residential. Ron, that's only for the residential portion, not for, we can still vacate it for, we're still requesting to vacate it above the subdivision.
I'm talking about your request for a future vacation
Yes.
based upon future events that have not happened yet.
Okay, well, we can, okay, correct, I hear what you're saying.
No, I didn't hear that.
I hear what you're saying.
Okay.
The farmland buffer from the what?
If I could, I'd just like to make it clear so that we're all on the same page.
Yeah, because I'm a little confused on this now.
That one would not be vacated at this time, because that would be a future condition.
And Ron, which one
The
are you?
rear portion would be vacated as part of this request. Okay.
What they originally asked for was that farmland buffers that are going to exist by virtue of this application could somehow disappear in the future without benefit of a public hearing. That's what I recommended against.
Okay.
Right, so Ron, what you're suggesting is the farmland to farmland buffer is okay,
I don't have a legal objection to that.
but maintain that buffer
And if
from
they-
that, I guess that would be the easterly portion on the residential side.
What I'm saying is, any buffer that exists by virtue of this application, they will have to return to get rid of it in the future, rather than it automatically disappearing.
That currently exists, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll remake that motion granting SD 2985 with the discussed and agreed upon with the exception of the relief from the farmland buffer, correct?
Yes.
On the
Okay.
residential portion.
On a residential, correct.
Roll call, please.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, Mr. Dorado.
Mr. Dorado?
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call, Mr. Dorado?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes,
Mr. Everett?
No.
And Chairman Schneider?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much for your time this evening, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for working that out. That's good of you.
Thank you. It's yours.
I'm going to take a minute to call in the other members.
Yeah.
That worked out well.
Happens in the future, you know.
Our job is progress. Just like it's a railroad. You just restricted.
Because they can't do things now on that piece of property that they normally do. So they can't do it.
Well, you have to pay for the deed, you have to pay for compliance, you have to pay for engineering review, yes.
Yeah.
When it's all said and done, if there's anything left, you can ask for it.
It's an ARM2, you just
Yes, we don't just,
and you
no.
can't.
For a handicap?
My lease, I found that at 17 free.
Which one are we doing next?
Lane's Pond.
My fence that I own. But I'm not even allowed to take it.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a buffer too.
Boy. Going up to Brooklyn, Crimson Drive. Great.
Yeah, put out Township, please.
Okay, this here.
I'll email you a receipt tomorrow. Thank you.
Lane's Pond developer? Okay, Eileen, we on to the next
Yes, you are.
Lane's Pond developer?
Yes.
Okay. Next application for today is case number SD-2984, Lane's Pond Developers LLC for minor subdivision. Counsel?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, board professionals and public, good evening all. My name is Kenneth Pape. I'm an attorney with the firm of Heilbrunn Pape, and I have the privilege of representing your applicant this evening. This is a 15.58 acre parcel of land that is in the ARE3 zone. A small portion is in the ARE2, but it's in the ARE3 zone. And we are asking this board to grant a minor subdivision to create 3 residential lots from this 15.58 acre parcel. And as you'll hear, the application is variance and waiver free. I think the only thing we would have to do is write to the state of New Jersey to report that we've exceeded the RSIS standards, and we have to register when we do that. So it would be a pleasure for us to so register. Before coming before this board, we've gone to a number of other boards and to commissions at the town, and we'll go through that with you. I note that the application was first presented to the board in December, at which time the board accepted the notices and carried us to tonight without the further requirement of notice and republication. And I only ask if that could be reflected as accurate and on the record before we begin.
Okay.
Correct? Thank you. So the application will be presented to you by Donna Bullock, who is a professional engineer with Crest Engineering. I'm going to ask that she present to you first a description of the property's location, and second, take us right onto the property and go through the elements of the subdivision. Before we conclude, we'll go through all of the outside agency approvals and where we visited with the commissioners and fire officials before coming here.
Okay,
So-
do you want to qualify your professional?
Sure. Well, let's swear in first.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
Donna M. Bullock, B-U-L-L-O-C-K.
And if you would share with the board and board's professionals and public, your professional and education background.
I have a engineering degree from New Jersey Institute of Technology. I've been working in civil engineering in Ocean and Monmouth counties for over 25 years. I ran my own civil engineering company called 3D Engineering that I ran into, say, 2010, and then from then I started working with other consulting firms, and now I'm currently at Crest. I have provided testimony in front of many boards in Ocean and Monmouth counties. The last time I was before Howell was when you were still way back in the woods, and I think it was a variance application. So that's how long ago it's been since I've been here.
And are you testifying as an engineer, planner, both?
No,
Professional engineer.
Just engineer?
Yes.
Okay, and your license is current in the
Yes,
state
it
of New
is.
Jersey?
Yes.
Okay, we'll accept your credentials.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Donna if you would take a moment to introduce the two exhibits that you prepared for this evening, and we'll label them as directed.
The first exhibit is simply called Aerial Display. It's dated 10/30/2018, and it has a yellow boundary line that indicates the current existing limits of the property. And it intersects at the northern side of Miller Road and Lanes Pond Road.
Just before you keep going, we're going to mark this as A12.
A12?
Mm-hmm.
So this exhibit basically shows the existing conditions and the property as it currently stands. And the second exhibit is also an aerial, but then we superimposed our minor subdivision over top of the property, so we can look at open areas and wooded areas.
A13?
Yes.
A13.
Thank you.
And then if you, after labeling it, you would return to A12. I'm going to ask if you would identify the roadways that are alongside the property and succinctly go around the property, identifying the surrounding activities.
Exactly. Lanes Pond Road is along the westerly side of the entire site. And then we have, like previously mentioned, Lanes Pond Road intersecting with Miller Road, which goes in the southeasterly direction until it intersects with the Conrail, New Jersey Railroad right-of-way.
Could take us around in the radius map and just beginning below Lanes Pond Road and describe the uses and activities and take us around the property just once.
Certainly. On the opposite side of Lanes Pond Road, there are residential dwellings to the east. And when you go up Miller Road, there's a farm and a nursery, and then there is a commercial use of a landscaping use. Anything else?
On the back of the property.
I'm not sure if that's commercial use. I believe that we have a commercial use on the opposite side of the railroad right-of-way.
The proposed subdivision is in the ARE3 zone. I think there's a small portion that's in the ARE2. We're not in any way using those lesser standards. We're following the more stringent ARE3. If you could, utilizing A13, identify the three-lot subdivision. If you could begin at the northern end of the property and just tell us the size of the first lot and the frontage that it enjoys along Lanes
Okay,
Pond Road.
the first lot located on the northerly portion of the site is proposed lot 5.01. We have 975 feet along the frontage of Lanes Pond Road and approximately 1,163 feet frontage along Miller Road.
If you could take us to the central lot.
The central lot, the frontage that we're proposing for Lot 5.02 is 260 feet, and the frontage along Miller Road is 200 feet, and we also have approximately 200 feet along the railroad right-of-way. And that area proposed is 3.14 acres. And then the remaining lot, Lot 5.03, has a frontage along Lanes Pond Road of 986 feet and a frontage along the railroad right-of-way of 1,185 feet.
So clearly, each of the lots meets or exceeds the size requirements, and each of the lots meets or exceeds the road frontage requirements.
That is correct.
And as far as all of the other bulk requirements, I think your chart on the plans and the board's professionals concurred. There are no variances requested with regard to this application.
That is correct.
Your office, your firm, also did other activities with regard to this property. The record reflects, the application record reflects that the health department witnessed 3 separate testing of the soils for septic system. Is it accurate to say that there were no constraints identified and the health department issued a letter indicating that these lots are suitable for septic system development?
That is accurate.
And it's necessary to demonstrate that because there's no sanitary sewer facilities in the area, correct?
Correct.
Similarly, there's no potable water supply in this immediate area.
No, there is not.
It's necessary in order to move forward with the applications for septic and well to first make an application to the township for preliminary utility approval to get a confirmation of those conditions. Would you share with the board, did your company make those necessary applications?
Yes, we did. We made the applications, and we have some written correspondence.
Suffice it to say that the preliminary applications were approved and these were released from the further review by the utility department.
Yes, they were.
We also went to the county planning board and have a county planning board resolution that's in your possession. We have gone to Freehold Soil, and Freehold Soil, we are pending. They've given us their first set of revision requests, and we've indicated to them that we would return after completing the presentation to this board. We also have a DEP application confirming the wetlands and their characteristics. If you could identify to the board, and all of that is part of the packets that were distributed, if you could confirm to the board where the wetland portion of this site is.
The wetland portion is located on the southerly portion of the site. You can see it by way of some hatching for the wetlands buffer. It's freshwater wetlands buffer intermediate resource value. And we also have a Dix Brook that runs along our southerly property line, and associated with that is a 300-foot buffer corridor, stream buffer corridor, and this whole entire area, which approximately consists of 2.35 acres, is wetlands, it's environmentally sensitive, it's non-developable, and will remain that way.
When we went to the Environmental Commission, and we did so this past year, to present the application, one of the requests was that there be a conservation easement in place that runs to the benefit of the township. And there are certainly restrictions that run to the state because there's wetlands on the property. But on behalf of the applicant, I can advise you that the applicant agrees to the following: a conservation easement that runs to the benefit of the municipality, creates no burden on the municipality, but it gives the municipality control over it. And it would be coincidental with the wetlands, the wetland buffers, and the full riparian buffer associated with Dix Brook. That was requested by the commissioners, and we found that to be an acceptable request. We also, As you can see from the multiple reports that were generated by your professionals, we spent some time with Chief Lewis, to make the fire department, make certain that he was comfortable with the plan. Your Shade Tree Commission has issued a report indicating there are no comments or concerns. Your staff has asked that we add street trees along the open space portion of Lanes Pond Road, which we find to be an acceptable request, and we agree to be bound by that.
Mr. Pape, if you could just hold for a second.
Surely.
Mr. Schneider here has a question. You have a letter stating that it was 4 conforming lots, but in fact, your application is for 3, correct?
That is correct.
Yes, but I'll answer the question.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. This application was initially 5 lots.
Yep.
It was then 4 lots, and then 3 lots.
Okay, so that April letter is an older
Yes,
letter.
th-
Okay.
Yes, and
Okay.
we went to the Environmental Commission more than once, and I think you'll see there's a total of 3 letters. We started out as a major, 15.58 acres, with a cluster concept. We then went to a 4-lot subdivision, and
Okay.
we then went to a 3-lot subdivision.
Thank you for the
And
clarification.
I'll share with you, as a 4-lot subdivision, it's a major, and the major required improvements to roads, curbs, sidewalks, and stormwater, the cost of which exceeded $600,000, and the project could not handle it. So your ordinance allows a 3-lot subdivision as a minor. We went from the 5 down to the 3, and we show the dedication to the town of roadways, but no improvements, which is consistent with your minor subdivision ordinance.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. The last comment that I have for you is that along the approval process, we received from Mr. Herman a request that the applicant consider making some lands available to alleviate the, I'll call it the oblique angle of Miller and Lanes Pond intersection. And I reviewed that with our applicant, and I asked our engineer if they could have an overlay exhibit to show you that. And I'm going to ask Donna if you could show that overlay. Little clever color forms.
This will be A14?
You may have
So
to bring,
A14 would be the overlay triangle.
you may have to bring that closer, please.
Okay, we will. In fact, we can, it is 3/10 of an acre, just about 15,000 square feet, that provides an opportunity to create a right angle intersection at the corner. There's no ordinance that requires it. It was a very reasonable request made by Mr. Herman. It causes the loss of some trees if the road improvement is made, but we have no problem making that land available to the township for their future use.
But the burden of those costs would not be incurred by you.
No, sir. And as Mr. Herman indicated, we'd like the land just in case we
Right,
choose
I
in the
understand.
future. Yeah. Thank you for asking, Chief. So there are staff reports that, you know, that you've had an opportunity, Donna, to go over the staff reports and to be in contact with CME's engineer and planner. There are some minor technical issues that are not fully addressed. Would you be comfortable advising the board and the board's professionals that you're comfortable you can and will address those technical requirements to the board professionals' satisfaction?
Yes, I spoke with both the planner, board's planner and board's engineer, and we agreed to comply with all of their concerns on their review letters, the most recent review letters.
It's a minor subdivision, and I'm hard-pressed to have a longer story to present to you. 3 fully conforming lots, oversized. Your staff recommendations have been incorporated to the plan. The landscaping, the street tree request, we find acceptable. Mr. Herman's request, we find acceptable. We would, that is our direct presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Pape. Could you please provide some testimony in regards to the Environmental Commission comments from December, and they said that, they're saying that they have the same comments as they had back in April of 2018, and it has to do with natural resource inventories, sufficiencies, and concerns of lack of specificity for the responsibility of maintaining the drainage basin, but the application doesn't seem to have a drainage basin anymore.
No, and it's the July report where they indicate that we came to them and made arrangements with them to put buffers on it. I think the fact that there was...
Is it safe to say that it looks like the disturbed lands are within the land that's presently being used without any trees on it? That doesn't seem like...
Correct. That's correct. The disturbance is just the open field. The development's the open field. The tree portions are left intact, which was not the case when it was a major.
Ms. Newman? Do you...
Mr. Chairman, at this point, they've adequately addressed our report. I have nothing, actually, I have one question. Did you say filing by map?
We plan on filing by map.
Okay, I have nothing further at this point, Mr. Chairman.
And you agree it's a variance-free
Yes, I do, variance and waiver free.
and waiver-free? Okay? And would this be the things that they are citing, the conservation easements and so forth, those things that should be put into a deed? Should those be deeded?
That's the only way you can do it.
Okay, great. All right, does anybody on the board have any questions? All right, we'll open it up to the public. Does anybody in the public have any questions or comments? If you do, please speak your name and your address.
Get away from it.
Okay, sir, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the
I
whole
do.
truth, nothing but the truth? Please state and spell your name for the record.
Russ Klaus, C-L-O-U-S-E, 320 Lanes Mill Road. My rental property is 37 Miller Road, directly across from this property. I think it's mandatory for curbing and sidewalks down Lanes Pond Road and Miller Road. That's a safety issue. We know the families that are going to be moving into those homes are going to be walking up and down them roads. I heard his testimony as far as it being, that qualifies for major. I don't agree with it. There's a ton of traffic. The chief probably knows this. There's a ton of traffic going down Lanes Pond Road and Miller Road. We don't need it. We don't need someone getting killed. So I think that's something we got to address about that. The other thing was, I didn't see any screening along Miller Road. I didn't get a chance to look at this plan. Maybe they can testify if there is some tree screening on Miller Road.
There is no tree screening on Miller Road. It's a residential lot with frontage on Miller Road, and your ordinance doesn't require that we have a landscape buffer in a front yard. We don't intend to use it as the front yard. We intend to have all of the homes oriented towards Lanes Pond, but your ordinance doesn't impose that as a requirement.
But street trees would be provided along Miller Road, correct?
Yes, in the areas that are not forested, correct.
Okay, that, just to confirm, that would be the backyard. The houses are facing Lanes Pond Road. I'm talking about Miller Road, the tree screening along Miller Road.
And I just addressed that. There would be street trees along Miller Road per your ordinance, but there's no buffering that's required along a road on residential properties. And there is none proposed.
Do we know what type of trees are going to be going along Miller Road? Do we have that yet? Are they going to, and how far spaced out will they be?
We have specific street tree requirements.
Yeah.
I'll defer to our
Trees are usually between 40 and 60 feet apart, averaging 50 feet apart. That's standard. They don't have that proposed yet, but they did agree to it, so I'll review that and make sure the, species are of a good quality.
The trees will be spaced out 40 feet apart?
Typical street trees are
Wow.
spaced average 50 feet. That's standard for
Okay.
all neighborhoods.
All right, I thought we were going to get some screening along there.
No, street trees are not buffers.
Yeah, I know, I just thought that, because the original major plan, we had screening going down all of Miller Road. And I was thinking, all right, great, at least I'm going to get a little screening, but that doesn't seem to be the problem. Here we go again, farmland. going bye-bye. I mean, at some point, we got to say, we got to draw a line in the sand and say, we can't keep having this, because our farmland's going to go bye-bye, and we know there's a disgusting neighboring town that gets away with anything they want to do. So,
Sir, we can't have that kind of comment.
Well,
You have to keep your comments specific to the application, okay? We can't have any of that derogatory comment, and I'm not going to tolerate that,
well,
right?
I'm just saying, we have, listen,
I don't want to hear what you're saying. Just state with your facts, and please talk about the application and issues that you have with the application.
Yeah. Well, again, I think we're eating up our farmland, and I really don't think that this should be approved. I really don't. And I think the applicant, if the applicant gets approved tonight, where's our town going? We're going downhill. All our farmland's going to go bye-bye, and then where? So, that's all I have to say, because I know you're going to cut me off.
Does anybody else have any comments from the public?
I'm across the street. My name's
Hold on, sir. Sir, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state and spell your name.
Colligan.
And your first name?
Edward.
And your address?
1092 Lakewood, Farmingdale.
Okay, go ahead.
I think the subdivision is a good idea. I think it'll enhance the value of the other properties. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Never met this man. What a nice thing to say.
Does anybody else from the public would like to say anything? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public session. Does anybody on the board have any last remarks or comments?
Well, I don't think you need the curbs and sidewalks in that area.
Okay, Mr. Pate?
Just very briefly, thank you. A three-lot subdivision beginning with 15.58 acres. Some portions of that will be dedicated to the township for road widening, so that you'll have 50-foot wide roads. The lots, even after the reduction for road widening, the size of the lots will be, as Ms. Bullock shared with you earlier, variance-free, waiver-free, protecting the environmental areas, leaving the trees in place, and voluntarily making lands available per Mr. Herman's request for the intersection, for future intersection improvements. I'm pleased to present an application so well conceived and one where the applicant worked so well with your professionals, and ask that you consider it favorably.
And you said you're waiting for freehold soils pending, and you're waiting for DEP approvals?
No, DEP's in place, and
Okay.
you have a copy of it. County's in place, you have it. The water and sewer release letters, you have.
Okay.
The only one that's pending is freehold soil, and we were reluctant to do the final revisions until we came here, just to make certain that we were consistent with your direction.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a point that was raised before. 3 homes on 4-acre lots certainly doesn't change the rural character of Howell Township. Just want to make that point.
Okay. No one else has any other comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve case number SD 284 Lanes Pond Development LLC.
2984.
2984.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Dorado?
Yes.
Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Everett?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
And Vice Chairman Tannenhouse?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Chairman, members of the board, thank you all, and good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, next case up is case number SP-830-A3, Northeast Remsco Construction. It's for amended preliminary and final major site plan.
You sleeping over tonight or what?
Gracias.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I think my people got fell asleep like that. It's not good enough.
Otherwise, it'd be sick. Pages of warnings.
No, hackable, I didn't play it up.
Wasn't
Sorry.
Does this pick me up? Okay. Okay.
I did it. Robin's been out, so if you can come back tomorrow.
I'll take them. No, I'll take them. That's fine. Thank you. All right, take care.
Here, Mr. Jones. Robert F. Piano. Davison, Eastman. Just fix it up. This is for you when you stand up. Davison, Eastman. Davison, Eastman. Letterman and Payon. I just get myself for some reason. Letterman and Payon on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Chairman, before I begin, I'd just like to bring the board up to snuff on the history of this application. If you look at the application, you see many revision dates, and I'll give you the short history. I've been doing work on this project for about 10 years now. What happened initially was there was some litigation that I was brought in to help settle with the Township of Howell, which we did settle. It involved a welding facility that was further down on Lakewood Farmingdale Road, south of the New Jersey Natural Gas area. I think it's south 195. South of 195. And it was a welding facility. And since that time, this particular project has evolved because the welding operations that were there were temporarily moved as part of the settlement to here, because that was the issue that was involved, the welding facility. So when it got moved to this, there was some indication this was a welding shed. It hasn't been a welding shed for a long time. And part of what's happened here is and you'll hear about it in a second, is that the operations of Northeast Remsco have changed over the years. And they have other facilities. For example, any fabricating is now done down in New Gretna, not anywhere in this area. And the fact that construction in general has changed a little bit because of the demands on contractors to do night construction and things of that nature, and the amount of equipment they have to have in order to bid the types of jobs they do. You're going to hear that Northeast Remsco is a heavy type of contractor. They do tunnels. They do major projects of that nature. They did one of the large sections of the Garden State Parkway when that was being expanded. That was divided up amongst several different contractors. They have to have a lot of equipment and a lot of things that you have to store over time, and you move them from job to job. Things at this site, this is not a construction site like a normal construction site where everybody comes to the site and goes out for the day, then brings everything back. These are heavy machines that can only be transported on trailers. They're not something that can leave. That's why you wouldn't drive them across your driveway or out on the roadway. Even when they've transported from this location to one of their other close-by locations, they don't drive them on the road. They're transported on trailers. In fact, that was our testimony in our other application that we had last year. And so I just wanted to bring that history to bear because I know the membership has changed from time to time, and that's why this project has itself evolved from time to time. Now, you have up the site plan.
I'd like to mark this, which is a little more simplistic view of what we're doing, because I think that's hard to read compared to what we're doing here. So,
Okay, we've pre-marked some exhibits. This would be A5.
which number?
A5.
A5 is a schematic prepared by our architect who will testify later. I'm going to have three witnesses this evening. Joe Barna, the engineer who prepared the plans and has prepared the plans, I think, every year that we've been here. I'm going to have John Gutierrez testify. He is the one who runs this particular site and is a member of the Gutierrez family, which owns Northeast Rumsco. And then I will have the architect go over the buildings. So with that, I would ask that Mr. Bonner be
Okay,
sworn.
do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state and spell your name.
Joseph P. Bonner, Bonner.
Mr. Bonner, could you give the board the benefit of your qualifications, your education and licensing?
I have a BS in engineering from New Jersey Institute of Technology, and I am a professional engineer registered in New Jersey, New York, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Kentucky.
And is your license current in the state of New Jersey?
It is.
And have you testified before this board?
I have,
And that would be on numerous occasions?
since 2004.
And the last time you testified was last year?
Correct.
We'll accept your credentials.
Thank you.
Mr. Bonner, I don't know which particular item you might want to use, but could you give a general description of the site and its environs in terms of where the site is located and what it surrounds it?
The site is located at 195 Squonkam Road, also known as County Route 547, also known as Lakewood Farmingdale Road, I believe. Mulligan's is in the exception to the west, the south. Pattymatic is to the north. To the east of the property is all owned by the state of New Jersey.
That's part of the park?
Correct.
And then what's behind us?
Behind us is property that the Gutierrez family owns to the west. There are 3 or 4 residential lots between us and 2 other properties we own to the south.
Okay. So although the property that wraps around behind this property also belongs to the same property owner, it's not necessarily connected because there's an intervening...
There's a property line between them.
Okay, and there's also a stream?
Correct.
Okay. Now, would you explain to the board what the existing conditions are on the property?
Existing right now is, as Mr. Munoz testified, when we vacated
Didn't testify.
or, I'm sorry, alluded to, that when we moved our facilities from 1120 Lakewood Farmingdale Road south of 195, we transferred them to this facility. That's why some of the nomenclature on the plans is a temporary welding facility. That was part of the global agreement. Right now, most of our operations to service equipment that we use for our heavy highway contracting business is serviced in this shed. This shed is the only thing that's existing right now out of the proposed structures.
And then what other structures are there on the property at the present time?
On the site plan, it's not shown on this one, but on the site plan, you'll see a temporary trailer. That temporary trailer houses the offices for the staff that operate the yard, which will be vacated once the building in the front, they're going to be their main offices, is constructed.
Are there any other structures on the property, either temporary or otherwise?
The existing?
Yes.
No.
Now, would you please describe the buildings that are proposed as this part of this amendment and where they're going to be located?
The changes in this amendment this is going to be the main maintenance facility for the heavy equipment, and we downsized the area of the offices in the front. So this changed a little bit from a T structure to 2 separate buildings housing the maintenance facility and the offices. 2 additional sheds were provided for indoor storage of temperature and humidity controlled sensitive materials that we have to store in building C and E.
What other structures are proposed?
There's a fuel canopy that's proposed that we're going to be moving existing on-site fuel storage into a better place for the circulation of trucks and equipment to fuel up in.
Okay, so let's talk first about the existing shed. What is that generally used for?
Right now, this is used for the maintenance of the equipment that we're going to be used in this. When this is built, all activities from here will be transferred to the maintenance shop.
And what will continue in that particular building?
This will be storage for specialty equipment that we use. We're own one of the largest fleets of microtunneling equipment. It's non-manned entry, up to 9-foot tunnels that we install from shaft to shaft trenchlessly to install pressure pipes, any kind of conduit.
And we'll actually show you that when Mr. Gutierrez comes up to testify. He will show you how that works and what that equipment is. Okay. And in the office, I guess John will tell us about how many employees will be working in the office. How about in terms of the other amenities at the site? What are we doing with regard to lighting?
The lighting, we submitted a 14-page document by Domini. And most of all the lighting will be facade mounted.
Could you please provide testimony? Is all of the lighting pointing down? Some of the cut sheets led me to believe there may be some ground-mounted lighting or some lighting that shines up.
It's my recollection that that there's zero light infiltration past the property line, and there's backlight preventers on the lights.
And does the light shine down or any of the lights shine up?
They should have backlight preventers on the sides and the top to direct the focus down to the ground.
Okay.
And there was a comment in one of the reports that that 0.2-foot candles is
0.3, I believe.
But 0.3 is what we're providing. And what is the reason for that?
There will be some spots in the yard where we won't, because we didn't want to have ground-mounted lights lighting up the entire neighborhood. That most of the areas that are not buildings will be used for storage of dry materials. Sheet piles that are 40 feet long, 5 feet wide, structural beams. If you've ever driven up the Parkway, precast concrete barrier that you use to control traffic and protect roadway workers from behind that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff will stay for long periods of time until new jobs that we get require them. So we didn't feel the need to provide 0.3-foot candles every single where there's outside storage.
Ms. Newman, is that explanation acceptable to you? I know you had a comment in your notes about the lack of lighting. Usually we're fighting the other way with too much.
Correct. Given the testimony that we've heard, I take no exception to it in this particular case.
Thank you.
Now, in terms of the drainage, was the drainage completed in another phase?
Phase 1 has already been completed in 2007. Phase 1 included general clearing, construction of the temporary welding facility to move our facility from 1120 Lakewood Farmingdale Road to this site, construction of the detention basin, and all pertinent drainage structures.
Mr. Chairman, I would point out that we take just a little step back here for a second with Monmouth County. Monmouth County had originally classified us as a new application, and they were going to, Monmouth County's drainage requirements are different than Howell's, as I understand it. And they have now reclassified us as a revision, so we will be going with the drainage that we have. And we will not have to, so that's a change in their position. That letter came, I believe, about a month ago. So we intend to maintain the existing drainage?
Correct.
Okay. So what are we doing in terms of the other things that are being done as part of this site plan? In terms of parking lots, et cetera?
The new additions will be the buildings A, B, C, and E, and the appurtenant parking for the office buildings and the shop in the front yard and next to the building.
Okay. Now, these buildings are all for this particular operation. They are not for, they don't have separate operations, all integrated into one operation?
Individually, they would stand alone as buildings, but they are all interconnected.
Now, could you explain the fuel area to us, please?
The fuel area would be under this canopy, and right now we have two existing fuel stations, a 100-gallon and a 500-gallon for dyed and non-dyed diesel fuel for our on-highway and off-highway trucks. And we'd be relocating them from the area that's adjacent to the temporary trailers now to facilitate better traffic flow to load up the vehicles in the middle of the yard.
Now, those are they like portable?
Yeah, they're portable, double-walled steel diesel containers.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to look at the comments from the Fire Bureau with respect to those facilities?
Yeah, I don't have a problem. The only question I actually had, I don't know if anyone from the Fire Bureau is here, is where they wanted the 30-foot aisle. It was a little unclear. If they wanted it at the throat, if they wanted it in the aisle of the parking.
Anybody? Yeah.
That's what the...
Are you from the Fire Bureau? I'll show you. What I would just say, Mr. Chairman, we'll try to comply with whatever they want. We believe that it may be between the two buildings as you go up the driveway. Yeah. Is that this? Oh, can I just ask you if you know if it's this? Right here?
Well, let's get them sworn in.
Yeah.
Either way, I don't have a...
Counselor? Just let's...
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. And
Can you
just
speak
give him
in-
the mic? Please state and spell your name and give us your position.
Jeff Hodges, Hodges. I represent the Howell Fire Bureau, Fire Commissioners, and Fire Districts for Howell Township.
Mr. Hodges, you and I have the same report. We're just trying to figure out where the indication is on the number one. We'll comply with everything in your report. It was just trying to figure out where that one is.
I believe you have this distance here going to the parking spaces is 24
Okay.
feet. Was this considered as well 24 feet? Because he's looking for the 24-foot section was supposed to be increased to 30.
This here?
That's what he had asked for.
And that's parking aisle?
That's, I believe, what Mr. Hutmeyer was asking.
We'll work it out.
Yeah, because what happens is you have the entrance here to go into the
Yeah,
lot.
I think it may be here. I think this may be a little.
Well, we
short.
definitely need to have that.
All right, we'll work with the Fire Bureau on that. Otherwise, we have no objection to any of the provisions in their report. If they determine that we need to have we do have a fire suppression system, which we'll hear about, but we will do a.
Did you just say you have a fire suppression system
think so,
in the
right?
canopy?
No, not in the canopy.
No.
In the buildings.
Oh.
And if they want us to have a hydrant on site, we'll work that out with them, and we can accommodate that.
I just had one question about the fuel canopy. Is this whole area just graded with gravel?
Yes. I
And
don't know if you can tell with the rendering. The dark black is asphalt and the gray is gravel.
So your fuel canopy is on top of asphalt?
Gravel.
So you're fueling vehicles on gravel?
Currently, yes. And
And
proposed.
that is going to stay that way?
Yes.
Part of the problem is the weight of the vehicles isn't conducive to being on the concrete.
Nick, was this one of the questions that
This was, and I disagree with that comment as well.
Okay.
If you put rebar and concrete or macadam, it can certainly take this equipment. That is a very big concern of the Environmental Commission. But on top of that, we also noticed that there's monitoring wells on the property.
Those are state DEP.
Correct. Why are they on the property? Was there a
It's
discharge
my
to
understanding that
groundwater?
it's from Frequency Engineering and the plume that they created. They asked us to install monitoring wells to monitor Frequency Engineering's plume and the traveling of the contaminations of their plume.
From an off-site source?
Frequency Engineering, which is half mile up the road, or
Has
was.
that been verified? Is there any verification of those wells that it's from an off-site source?
They're not ours.
They're not ours. The DEP asked us to install them to, yeah, I'm sure I can provide verification that those DEP monitoring wells were for Frequency Engineering and nothing that we created.
Okay.
There was also, in terms of the improvements along the road and the frontage there, at the present time, there's just a fence. Could you explain to the board what's going to change in the front in terms of?
I'm sure many of you have driven down or gone to Mulligan's. You can see the green fence that goes along the front. That was put up during construction. It's really a construction fence to detract from an attractive nuisance from the town. That all goes away when that you'll see in the architect's rendering. When the site plan is finished, there's a fence that'll tie into the buildings here, across the front, and then to the sideline. And that green fence goes away. All the storage in the front yard now goes away.
So what will be provided in the front yard? In terms of what's proposed?
Parking, berms, and screening.
And there was a comment regarding the height of the berms and the screening. Will comply with
I
whatever.
don't have a problem complying with
are required.
what the town wants.
Jimmy, let me ask a question, it's just why it's dawning on me. What's the emergency plan should you have spillage at the fueling station? Being that you're on gravel and impervious coverage and going into the ground and all that?
I don't know the answer to that right now. Our operations manager might be able to talk to that.
Okay.
Since he's on to.
He can tell you about the spillage things that they use.
Do we have any state regulations? Howell have any regulations on that? Well, more importantly, do we have anything on Howell?
I don't think we have anything on it. I think maybe the state, but I don't think locally we do.
We'll have to comply with whatever the state
Yeah, sure.
says. Okay. I believe there was also a comment regarding a trailer or a generator located in a side yard. Do you know what that's about?
So some of the questions that came back in some of the letters were, what are the trailers doing there? I believe Hal has an ordinance that requires a permit for every on-site construction trailer. On one of the plans, you'll notice that there's a 100 by 100 area where we locate construction trailers. Now, part of our jobs, since we're heavy highway contractors, we own 5 to 7 temporary trailers. They're not being used as a temporary trailer on this site. They're stored until we get another job and we bring that office trailer to the job site. I'm sorry?
I think your trailer structures, if I'm reading Ms. Newman's report right, is causing you to have a variance, and you're not, am I reading that right, Ms. Newman? So if the trailers could be moved, we can eliminate the variance.
You know which number that is?
Just to be clear, I don't think there's any variances with this application. There's relief that was previously granted, and there's design waivers associated with this.
Maybe if I can, Mr. Chairman, I think there's a temporary structure, that's an accessory structure, which we'll have testimony with respect to. The question was whether it was a accessory structure or not. If it's accessory structure, it did not require a variance. And
Gotcha.
since indicated it was accessory, I think that variance notation was withdrawn.
Okay.
And the second thing is there, on the site plan, I don't know if you guys can see.
Can we just stick with that for a moment, though? The temporary structure, how long has it been there?
Well, it's not necessarily temporary, it's an accessory structure. It's a hoop structure.
Right.
It's for storing, if you'll hear testimony.
No, it's not, it's permanent.
Well, it's permanent, but it's not affixed, I mean, it can.
Well, I think, but in terms of a zoning
It's
parlance.
there all the time, but it's
yes,
accessory,
okay.
it's not a principal.
No, I wasn't contesting that
Yeah.
it wasn't a principal use. I just wanted
I
to
guess
clear
I
up
meant
the.
temporary because it's a hoop thing instead of a,
Okay.
a built kind of.
And I believe the second question was about generators.
Yes.
As part of our microtunneling fleet, some of these machines require 1,000 kW generators, and they're stored on trailers to the south of our existing tunneling shed. They're generators that are used to test and power the tunnel boring machines before they go out on the site to make them work. They're not generators that are used at the site.
And
They're appurtenant equipment that we use for our operations.
And Mr. Gutierrez will also testify about those generators and how they're
So is that an accessory structure that's within the setback, or is that?
It's on a trailer, it's
on a
movable.
trailer. It moves around. So if they had a power failure or they needed it somewhere else on the site, they can move it to somewhere else on the site.
Yes. The trailer's to the south of the previously constructed store, the other way. Yeah, there you go. See where it says trailer?
These ones?
Yeah, those are
Those are
1,000 kW trailer-mounted generators. And it's just labeled trailer because it's on a trailer. But it's movable.
So just to confirm, you do not have a functioning generator which services your site?
Not to my knowledge, no.
We don't.
The one question I want to ask, and I don't want to cut you off, but before you get too far, is this is supposed to be gravel existing, and I don't believe you have firm gravel completely out there.
It's been gravel. It needs to be probably replaced and refurbished.
Okay.
But I don't even know how many truckloads I put down. It was RCA that we put down, and, the nature of the beast of gravel is after a while, it sinks in the mud.
And I just have a quick question about the fuel storage. You mentioned before it's portable fuel storage.
Correct.
Is there any type of time frame where it's moved or switched out? And if so, what's the process for that?
No time frame. It's just portable in the fact that you can move it easily. It's mounted on steel skids, which makes it portable. It's not something you carry from place to place.
And I guess the reason I'm asking, is it proposed to be underneath the storage canopy?
Yeah, underneath the canopy.
Indefinitely, like permanent, that would be the permanent area for it?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is,
Thank
would you describe what those contain, what the,
Dyed and non-dyed diesel fuel.
no, but what are the actual, because I think if everybody was thinking there's going to be like a tank there, what is it, how is it, what kind of a
I don't know the
structure?
dimensions of it off the time. It's a 1,000-gallon double-walled steel container. I think the 1,000-gallon is no bigger than the table, and the 500-gallon is half that size.
Does the fuel canopy have bollards around it?
Not currently. I can't see there be a problem complying with either the fire code, UCC, and whatever the state has for a fuel canopy.
Well,
If there needs to be paving underneath it, I can't see that being a
I don't want to beat a
problem.
dead horse here, but you're talking about fueling vehicles on a gravel lot, and I'm looking at, you have the worst of two scenarios. You have either compacted gravel, where something is going to hit it and it's going to flow off, sheet flow into surface drains that surround the property, or because it's an impervious surface, it's going to get into the ground and eventually into the groundwater. The vehicles you stated they're put on trailers. These are massive, massive vehicles. So if something were to hit a tank, I think a bollard may prevent some quote-unquote catastrophe from happening, and that's my concern.
Yeah, whatever the UCC and fire code and state mandates that we have, we will have.
Sounds like you may need to do some research on that, and come back with something that's definitive.
Okay. I think one of the other questions in the report was the status of the roadway improvements. Weren't those were the county roadway improvements? Were they completed as part of phase one?
Yeah, completed and our bond was released.
Yeah. I have no more further questions of the engineer, other than unless there's something in the report that we need to address.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? My only question and comment is that there's a couple of letters that we got from our environmental commission where their questions have not been answered, and I'm a little bit concerned not knowing what those questions were that they were asking, and that those questions weren't answered.
Didn't the representative just tell us what they mean?
I mean, that's,
No.
that's my big ones, yeah.
One was the fueling system, which you pointed out.
Yeah.
And the other one was what was going to be stored in the buildings and for what duration, and I have Mr. Gutierrez to address that. We don't store things that spill. So.
Yeah, we'll wait for the, I have another question, but I'll wait.
Okay, thank you.
Do we want to open up the public for this particular consultant, or? or witness?
My recommendation on this one, Mr. Chair,
Or just
because
wait
a
until
lot
the
of these
end?
things are interrelated, that we let them just put their witnesses up and
And
then
finish
ask questions and testify at one time at the
It's
end.
also getting close to the 10 o'clock hour. I'm not sure we're going to be able to finish this here. We're
Well, you've already told them they need to come back
going to need
to address the Environmental Commission issues.
well, not just that, it sounds like these are a code thing that they need to be more definitive on.
I would like to try and at least have, I have an architect and Mr. Gutierrez. I don't think the architect might be longer, Mr. Gutierrez won't be long. He's addressing the operational portions. And I think that to understand some of the stuff we've done, it's very hard to try and explain what you're doing here without explaining what you're doing here. And then if you explain what you're doing there first and then explain the site, I mean, I was kind of tossing around which one to put on first. It's like a chicken and the egg kind of thing. So maybe if we have John come up and testify, we'll clarify some of the things, and then we'll see where we are at that point, maybe.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Gutierrez, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
John Gutierrez, last name Gutierrez.
John, could you give the board the benefit of what you do, what your position is at Northeast Remsco, and what you do and what your responsibilities are?
I'm the equipment manager for Northeast Remsco, and I'm responsible for maintaining and purchasing, selling, leasing all the equipment. I've been doing this for 12 years. I actually have also 8 years of operating the equipment, experience on operating equipment.
And you're the one who's in charge of this particular yard?
Correct.
Okay. Now, could you explain to the board what happens at this yard and what the overall movement is on the site?
The typical daily routine is we have some mechanics who are there to repair and maintain the heavy equipment, as small as light towers and generators and welding machines and air compressors, to as large as, big size excavators, loaders, dozers, cranes. And then the other staff in the yard handles the loading and unloading of the equipment and material, dry storage material, to provide support for the field.
What kinds of things would be stored on the site, other than the equipment?
Pipe, ductile iron pipe, concrete pipe, PVC pipe, steel beams, sheets, sheathing that goes around the shafts that we build for the tunnels, steel plates, trench boxes. We have containers and such with, just miscellaneous stuff to support the job sites, and equipment. The smaller equipment mainly, most of our equipment is out in the field and stays out there until the job is done, and it'll either go to another job site, or if there's a window between jobs, we bring it to the yard to service, maintain, and just to store there temporarily and hopefully our goal is to have no equipment in the yard and have everything working out in the field.
So what kinds of things are going to be stored in the buildings?
If I could stand up here. In building, what is this, A103? It's
You have to stand to the side when you point, because otherwise nobody can see.
Building A103 here is going to be a 10,000 square foot storage building for a lot of the dry material. We have some material that's used on site that can't be out in the weather. It has to be out of the elements. It's pretty expensive, and the longer we leave it out in the sun or the rain or the snow, the less valuable it's worth, and then we have to replace it. We also have water. We work on water treatment plants and sewer treatment plants where there's big electrical components or mechanical components that we try and save money, buy it earlier in the phase of the project, knowing we're going to need it 6 months or a year, but yet we need to store all that in an area, and we get a lot of requests that we're unable to provide, and then we have to go rent somewhere to provide those accommodations. So that's the idea behind that, is to have all that available space for situations like that.
So you're not storing things that spill?
No.
Okay. Now, we also talked about that temporary hoop shed. What is that for?
Right now, we use it for, our microtunnel division has control containers with a lot of electrical components and stuff, and we need to. We don't have the room now, we don't have any of this, all these structures up. So we use it to store the high dollar expensive control containers that run these microtunnel equipment. And
So it's like an overflow
so
storage
it's an
kind of
overflow
spot?
storage
Okay.
area. Yeah.
Now, you brought with you today a depiction of the type of microtunnel work that you guys do?
I did, just so you guys
So why
get a
don't we have
better
that, Mark?
understanding of what it is that we do.
Just give me one.
Okay, this will be A6.
A6. All right, I'm going to give the rest to the, why don't you, we'll give the rest to the board to look at. Okay? Keep, how do I get these to you?
Sorry if I didn't print enough.
Would you explain what A6 shows?
This is generally how it works on site, and if you start at the bottom there, the MTBM is a microtunnel boring machine that basically you see the shafts to the left and to the right, and the goal is to get from point A to point B without disturbing the surface above. And then you got a jack and frame that kind of has hydraulic jacks that push each section of pipe, product pipe into the ground and follows the MTBM from point A to point B. You got slurry pumps, feed pumps, and then up top above ground you have the gantry that raises and lowers all the sections, and even hoses that run it, and the control container, which is the computer, the brains of the whole apparatus.
So these are the kinds of things that you bring to and from sites in order to do this type of work?
Correct, and we support the jobs when we tunnel through, get the head out. It's got a grinding wheel on the front. We load it on a truck, bring it back to the yard, power wash it, prep it, do whatever we need to do to prepare for the next project.
Okay.
Just one question on, are you ever involved with site remediation projects or any projects with contamination on site?
No, we are not.
Okay.
Is that correct, Joe? We don't do site. No,
Are any of the machines ever on contaminated sites?
not to my knowledge.
So this is the type of equipment you're bringing to and from this, and also the equipment to install these things and do these projects?
Correct.
So these are not the kinds of things you're going to see doing residential construction or building construction, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Right. Now, how many employees do you actually have located at the site?
Depending on the season, right? 18 to 20 between mechanics, yard personnel, and the admin staff, and myself, and logistics coordinator shop.
And how many shifts do you run?
One from 7 to 3:30 are the hours. At times, when we have highway projects that we can only work at night, we have to support those projects by opening up the yard to, and unload some material that comes in and out. And we'll have 2 guys there, and then trucks coming in, and that's probably once every couple months or roundabout.
Okay, now, this time of year, you have a lot of material on your site, do you not?
Yes.
Okay, is that because construction is seasonal?
Pretty much.
Now, in terms of on the site itself, how are things moved around?
With loader, forklift, and a little skid steer.
Okay, so most of the equipment that you have out there that you're moving around isn't mobile by itself, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, I think you've already described for us what's stored on site. Now, will there be any outside storage outside the fence area?
No.
Okay.
No.
So the front, along the roadway, we will no longer see anything?
I don't want to see anything.
Everything's behind the fence now, but you'll have...
Correct. It's behind the fence, but, it's...
And you don't store pieces of equipment at your site, do you? Or you don't have outside storage of half put together pieces of material or machines or anything?
No, we don't assemble anything.
So you don't assemble there. Your welding operation for the most part is in New Gretna now? So can I
Correct,
understand it?
correct.
And in terms of the work that you do on the machinery, is that done inside or outside?
We try to keep everything inside, assuming we have room, which is why we're going to be building a mechanic shop behind the office here. This will be for the mechanics to do their work. Right now, we're working as much inside as we can because it's only 30-foot depth. And the new proposed building is, I don't even know what it is, 50 or 60. So to make it more comfortable and to be able to do 90% or more of the work inside rather than being limited to, to the area that we have inside there.
Okay. And there's, in terms of this project going forward, how soon do you see, because this has been going on for a while, how soon do you see this going forward?
Our goal is to be approved here today and start breaking ground in the summer
And what will
of
be,
2019.
and where will you start the construction in terms of this?
We would like to do the area in the front, the parking lot, the office, and the 10,000 square foot storage building, and the landscaping all along Lakewood Farmingdale Road.
And when the office is done, the office trailers that you use on the site will be decommissioned?
Correct. We will decommission those, and we'll also, because next to that is the temporary fueling area, which, by the way, does have bollards around. The township, somebody in the town came and asked us to do that, and we did. We spent the time and we put the bollards around the current fuel bollards. Yeah, sorry. And we do intend to do that within the new area as well. And we didn't really get into the details of what's going to be on the ground underneath, but if you guys recommend and we'll do it, put concrete in that area, that wouldn't be an issue at all. And as far as, if I can continue.
Yeah, whatever other things that...
About the fuel
that
area.
I kept saying you'll talk about when you come up.
About the fuel area, we have, for our mechanics, when they do work on equipment, even in the yard and out in the field, spill kits, which are like big diaper pads, probably as big as this area here. And they have, stuff that they sprinkle that absorbs the spill, and then you sweep it and clean it up that way. We're very, environmentally conscious of, we know what we got to do, and any spills that happen, we take care of that. We take it seriously, so.
Could you also explain I think I also said that you would give us a little bit more enlightenment on the generators and how they're used.
The generators, we have two. One is a 600 kW and another one is a 1,000 kW. I'd like to have that to an emergency in my neighborhood, but anyway, we use it. They're on trailers, so they have axles, and you can just back a tractor up to it and tow it to the sites. And those really support our two biggest microtunnel pieces of equipment. In order to run them, you need a generator of that size. So we have them parked on the side there, and that's where our mechanics work on the tunnel equipment. So in order to prepare, we have to know that it's going to work. We have to test it. So when they clean it, maintain it, service it, and then we use those generators to run the equipment, test it all, make sure all the meters read accordingly, the pressures are all accurate and everything, and then most likely one or the other will follow it to the job. It depends on the size of the MTBM.
And those are an MTBM is the...
Correct, the microtunnel boring machine.
All right. In terms of how do you take care of issues like if you're removing fluids from a machine or something of that nature, do you have a recycling program for that?
We do.
Okay.
Yes.
Could you explain that to the board?
You're talking about like the waste oil?
Yes.
Our mechanics have drums and containment areas that they from the jobs, they'll siphon it into, and then we have a bigger, I think it's a 500-gallon, don't quote me on that, but it's a waste oil tank that we have, and we have it in a containment area. And
it's above ground?
It's above ground.
And where is that located?
It's inside this building in Bay 3 or 4, we call it. And we have a, waste oil company come, I don't know how often, I think once a week, depending on how full it gets, and they come and they siphon it out, and away they go.
And that's existing?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
But there was a question about recycles. How about in terms of other disposal of items on the site? What other kinds of disposal do you have?
We have, scrap steel, we have regular garbage, and we have recyclable, which we use Mazza. They're located in Tin Falls, I believe. And we have big 30-yard containers, one for steel, one for the cardboard, and the other for regular garbage. And we pay they come every week to swap them out.
I don't have any further questions of Mr. Gutierrez.
Thank you. Does the board have any further questions?
Just something I was thinking about in terms of fluids and spillage. Assuming you probably deal with a good amount of hydraulic fluid as well, and that you guys just comply with any regulations that are required as your standard.
We comply, yes, with all the absorbent pads and everything like that. We do handle them, and especially on the jobs. In the yard, it doesn't happen because we just maintain, nothing breaks there because it's not being being used. But yeah, in the field, they're on us for that. So yes, we are prepared to handle any spills in the yard and field.
How long have you been on this property?
Oh God, long time. I've been in my position since it's probably how many years?
I've been working on this for 10 years. So I think they were there at least 4 years before
20
that.
years? No, at this site?
20 years? 20 years.
So in the 20 years, have you had any spills?
No.
No reportables to DEP?
No.
Think they'll be ready?
Just have some info we're looking at. I have a quick question or two. Excuse me. I'm sorry if I missed it. Did you state the hours of operation and number of employees?
7 to 3:30, Monday through Friday. And there are times at times when we need to support jobs that are working night shifts. But that's happens once every 2 months, I would say. And there's about 18.
Contracts require you
To provide service at night. Okay.
And yeah, sometimes it'll go like pretty often for like a week or two, and then it'll go away for a couple months before we need to work at night. But 99% of the time, it's 7 to 3:30, Monday through Friday, and there's 18 to 20 employees at this site.
Okay. And during the occasional night shift timeframes, does it end up being a 24-hour day, or is it an 18-hour?
Well, it would probably, just at night, yeah, 24-hour, I would say, just within the one day, and then it would pretty much stop.
Okay. Approximate number of employees?
18 to 20, call it 19.
And last question, I just wanted to get a sense, since there's no delineated circulation in the yard, I just wanted to get kind of a sense of how it operates, like if you have a truck coming in and a truck leaving, is there a defined circulation pattern?
No, we have a truck that comes in, we offload him, he gets out, and then if we have another truck that needs to be loaded, we'll just do it accordingly.
Okay. Do you ever have issues with any kind of internal conflicts as far as trucks moving around the yard, or?
No, we don't have that much traffic.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to get a sense of the operations.
I think your testimony was that the 18 to 20 employees are also the people who move the trucks around. So the same people who are on site are the ones who are moving things.
Correct. We have 2 full-time drivers based out of the yard. And I got like 4 or 5 that handle the material, organize everything in the yard, and also do the loading and unloading of trucks.
So other than people who are going to be working in the yard, people don't come and go from the yard. They'll be coming and going from the parking lot and into the office.
Correct, yeah. Once we get this building, the parking lot, the new parking lot, the office, everyone will have a gate right there, and everybody will be parking their cars in the front parking lot. We'll have no machines, so we won't even allow that. And the machines will stay in the back on the gravel surface.
So at the present time, you have to go into the back, because I know this because I haven't been there. You have to go into the back to the office. That will no longer be true. Traffic, like the lawyer, will not be going into the yard anymore. It will be going to the front.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing that it's just after 10 o'clock, what's the board's pleasure? Want to call it a night?
Well, they have to finish, they still have another witness to
Still
go.
have another witness, they have the architect to witness.
Well, it's one more person we have left is the architect.
Sure, we're gonna get to, everybody seems to be pretty tired.
I don't think it would be long.
Mr. Chair?
You guys want to sit and listen to the architect?
What's your list, professional that has to testify?
Architect.
He shouldn't be long.
Is there anybody from the public that came here? So we know. Nice. So nobody from the public?
There's one.
One. I think somebody said they had questions.
Besides the fire? Okay.
Okay. And do you feel that all the environmental
I still have
questions
issues.
or
They've been answered, but I still have issues.
I would feel more comfortable if the environmental commission's questions were answered.
Well, I asked them.
You asked all of them?
Yeah, I mean, that was our
And were they,
concerns.
responded to your satisfaction?
Question is, did they respond to your satisfaction?
I rely on the environmental commission to, you know, lighting's my,
I know you're
my ball, my expertise.
I think the questions were exactly what were indicated.
Okay.
I'm sorry, wasn't there information still outstanding that you were going to gather concerning the fueling area? What was required by the state?
We can do that. What Mr. Gutierrez says, if you want us to put macadam under it, we'll put concrete under it. We have the bollards now, we'll put the bollards. You know, I mean, we can get more into that. Would be happy to come back. If I could get the architect to go over the pictures in case there's comments and we have to come back on that, then when we come back, we'd be able to come back on all of it. I don't think he'll be long. The buildings are not complicated.
I'm willing to readdress this at a next meeting, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
We can
So
even
bring
try.
bring the architect, because I know he may not have to come back for another meeting, and then you don't have to pay him.
We're gonna let the architect speak and
If we get bogged down, then we'll stop.
Yeah, you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
Robert Dooley, D-O-O-L-E-Y, Jr.
Mr. Dooley, can you give the board the benefit of your credentials, please?
New Jersey School of Architecture, licensed and registered architect, New Jersey since 1994. I've given testimony in towns throughout the shore, Asbury Park, Spring Lake, and I'm also a member of the Long Branch Zoning Board of Adjustment.
Okay. And have you testified in Howell before?
I have not.
And is your license current?
Yes, it is.
okay, we'll accept your credentials.
Thank you.
Mr. Dooley, would you please describe, rather than me lead you through each building, if you have things you want me to mark, I'll mark them, but so we can make this a little quicker, if you could go describe each building to the board?
I can do that.
Okay. So I think, Mr. Chair left. I think we're up to A7. Okay.
And as you're going through your
Are these the same plans that were submitted, though?
Yes.
They are. They have a few additional notes for tonight, but they're the exact same plan.
Okay, if they have different notes, we'll mark them down then.
If you could also address Ms. Newman's questions when you're doing your testimony at the same time, please.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to just kind of blow through all the buildings and let you guys get an idea what they are. First of all, Building A, Building B, Building C, Building D, Building E. Building A is a one-story office building, is a gable roof that runs parallel to Lakewood Farmingdale Road.
You have to hold the mic to your mouth, closer.
The ridge,
There you go, thank you. Yeah, you gotta hold it real close.
The ridge
There you go.
is 15 feet 8 inches high.
I would call it a hot-rodded, pre-engineered building with ribbed metal roof and wall panels, typical of the type of structure. An entry canopy roof and sunscreen supported by rods over the windows. So you can see in this elevation, there's a stone, it's a pre-engineered building. Metal panels, metal roof, residential type windows, stone base with canopies over the windows in the front entry. Mechanical systems are all internal, except for 2 or 3 ground-mounted condenser units that would be placed on pads on the south rear side of the building.
And are you guys providing bollard protection for the parking that's facing the building, or is the building being made that?
I did not, because, see, the building is set back far enough from the parking area where there's a sidewalk, and then there's planting. So I did not provide any bollards at that location in the front.
Ms. Newman, would that comply with our ordinance?
I don't think there is parking where, let's put back up the site plan just so everybody can see it.
Is the parking off to the side?
It's,
It looks like there's like the may have been some of the handicap parking.
so if you just look up on the screen, this is building A.
Yep.
So there's some green space, sidewalk, and then the parking. So typically,
Six
kind
ball.
of have it almost directly against where we have sidewalk in the building, but there's the provision that they could put something at least in this area.
I would agree. Mr. Schneider?
Well, those 5, 6 spaces facing the building should have bollards.
If you'd like bollards, we can put bollards.
It would comply with our ordinance.
Very good. All right, I'll go on to building B. Building B is a one-story building. It houses construction materials, as was explained earlier. Has a gable roof that runs parallel to Lakewood Farmingdale Road. The ridge height is 29 feet 4 inches. Again, it's a pre-engineered building, ribbed metal roof and wall panels, and a 4-foot high stone base or facade on the east, north, and south sides, and 2-foot-6 wide stone pilasters at the east side, 28 feet on center, that also wrap the corners. It has a large aluminum louvers on each end of the building for ventilation. The mechanical systems are all internal, and you can refer to drawing A103.0 and elevations of building B. Yes.
This is shown on A9.
Now, when you say mechanicals are all internal, is that going to be any piping as well?
Everything's on, well, we would have, there is a small bathroom in this building, so you'd have vent pipes that would go through the roof, but there's nothing roof mounted or outside. Everything is internal.
So electrical service and
Everything.
gas service is going underground and then coming
Yes.
directly into the building?
From what I understand, yeah, the electrical service is coming across the back of this building and through an area through the site.
Okay, and then if you need to rise up, you'll rise up inside the building?
We will come up inside the building. Right. Building C. Now, I haven't shown Building C. Building C is a storage shed on the back of the site. It's an open building. It has a shed roof that is 17 feet 3 inches high on the high side, faces a yard, is a pre-engineered building with ribbed metal roof again, wall panels again. Typical type of structure. It is completely open on the east side. There are no mechanical systems in this building at all. It's an open storage shed. Building D, which we're looking at now. Building D is connected to Building A by just a canopy. Building D is a one-story maintenance building used for equipment storage and repair. Has, again, a gable roof that runs perpendicular to Lakewood Farmingdale Road. The ridge is 30 feet 2 inches high. It is pre-engineered building. Again, metal roof, panels, all the buildings match. The we're using the same wall panels. It's like a campus design. You know, it's all going to be the same. The east elevation has a 4-foot-high stone veneer, wide stone, and a wide stone veneer at the center here that engages a louver at the top. Just architecturally, I like the way it looked. And then we'll go on to building E, which is the canopy, the fuel canopy. And if you look at, in your package, there's a rendering called J6. There it is up here. We did plan on protecting the steel columns, encasing them in concrete, and we can, and the above-ground fuel storage tanks I'm showing are round. They actually have cube units, but they would be in a similar position. Trucks would come through on the high side, and they would be fueled, or equipment would be fueled. And again, like it was, absolutely we could put a concrete base underneath that whole structure.
Is this just a rendering, or is there actually like a tank cradle where these tanks are dropped in?
The cubes, they do, it's different. It's like they said, they're on a skid.
Right.
But it is similar to that. Instead of being round on the bottom, it's flat. And
Okay.
then there are feet that come down from the cube.
Okay.
Joe, is that right?
Just one? I think I'm up to A11. I'll pass A11 around. It's a 3-page spec on the fuel cubes.
There would be no mechanical systems in this building other than electricity for to run the equipment, and there would be lighting underneath the canopy.
And again, the electricity is going to come in under the foundation, and if they need to rise up, it'll happen inside the
Yes,
building.
there's no overhead wires anywhere on the site that I know.
Okay. At the end of your buildings?
Do you have any questions about the buildings?
Can you just address J and K? I mean, it's common about the 50-foot length of, no, on the facades. You got a flat front. Did you have the report?
I do.
From J and K?
I do. And I read
Design waiver?
I think that might be comment 7S.
Yeah. I had a question. First, I'll go to 5F on the report, and we'll go to 7S. The board planner, in the report, you said there was a 70-foot front that was just a plain front, had nothing on it. And I was just curious because I didn't know which building you were talking about.
Yeah, I think the intent was actually, because the letter was updated, so I believe it was referring to, it wasn't building A, actually. It would have been building B, the rear facade. And I think more than anything, we just wanted to clarify, it's a long stretch. And
On the back of the building?
On the back of the,
Yeah, we were concentrating on the public appearance of the buildings. To put the stone on the back of the building where it could be damaged easily by vehicles or loading or moving equipment in and out of buildings, it was just going to get trashed. So, and it's not seen from the street. So I didn't put anything on the back of that building. It's just the architectural panels.
You don't have any recesses or bumps in the building either, correct?
No, I don't. That, you have a requirement that you have to, the pilasters have to be, could be 3 foot deep. And I'm sorry, it just didn't make any sense to me to do that to make a 3-foot box out the face of the building. I don't think it would look any better than what we're already doing. And I would probably have my gutters and leaders that would come down also in the center of those pilasters. I actually thought the buildings looked pretty good. Without a 3-foot, because I'm not going to push into the building. I
Right.
would just literally be bringing a 3-foot box out of the building.
Can you describe like landscaping and vegetation in front of that facade? Like, is there any other means that you could use to break up the continuation of it?
Make a fake window?
I mean, I think this is where the board kind of needs to comment, because we've never accepted a facade that looks like this that doesn't have some level of an architecture treatment. I'm not saying the building doesn't look pretty, you have changes in texture, but we've spent a lot of time looking at people's architectural plans and seeing if it meets the intent. I mean, if you look at, I think Building B may extend over 50 feet, but if you look at Building B, you know, I have it up on the screen.
It looks nice. I mean,
We're just talking the back, right? I mean, we're just really talking about the back of the building.
well, that's the side that people see, is the others.
Yeah, just to clarify, the back of the building faces the street. Is that correct?
Yes, right, the elevation on the
bottom
bottom of the page faces the yard.
This is the yard.
You never see that from the street.
And then the street side will have
That's this one.
some,
Yeah, from
But
the
that's
street-
this
some
facade.
landscaping and berm. There's
From
going to
the
be
street,
landscaping and
there's
berm.
a line of landscaping, then there's a berm, and then there's the building facade with the stone and the metal panels.
And it's been asked that we increase the berm, and we don't have a problem with that. Push the berm higher. So it'll be landscaping and berm. You won't see that from the street. You'll see landscaping and berm. That will be beyond that area.
You know, and I agree that these buildings need to be articulated, but I also feel that that should be done within reason. And I think I need to work on some more again, but I think we addressed, with the exception of the 3-foot depth of the pilasters, or making some kind of recess, I think we addressed what was required.
Could you go back to the site plan, please, and show us exactly what building on the site this is?
Yeah, this is Building B.
Just put the,
Better do this, right? This is A5.
so it's the one closest to the road.
Correct.
That's going to be the most prominent scene.
Has no parking in front of it, and will have a berm and
How high is the berm?
There's dense landscaping in front of it, then there's the berm.
Deciduous or non-deciduous landscaping?
we'll put in whatever is required on the landscaping.
Mr. Chair, I have many comments regarding landscaping, just to clean it up. You know, it looks like evergreen landscaping, but it's not. Those are shrubs. They look like an evergreen tree on the graphic, but it's a photinia, which is a shrub. So, I mean, I would say they definitely need to do some work on the landscaping to provide a better buffer.
We'll work and do whatever landscaping is required. We even said we would, I don't know whose comment it was to raise the berm, so we'll raise the berm too. Not a problem.
Anybody have any other further comments for them to look at?
So you're saying that the berm is going to overshadow the building that we're talking about? Because you went from building to berm.
Well, no, the comment was that in front of this building, unlike the other building, there's no parking. This is just, there's a berm that runs along the front here. The landscape architect asked us to raise the berm higher than what was originally in the drawings. We're willing to do that, and we'll work on whatever plantings are necessary to break that up.
In the front of the building where that long,
It's this, right there.
And all you see is just the pilasters.
You see that and the berm and the, how tall is the berm now?
The berm doesn't run across the entire frontage, it's not by the parking area.
We could probably put the berm down, can't we? Huh? There's plenty of room, we can do that. We'll work with the landscape architect.
I mean, if you wanted to talk about landscaping, you could have them put some sort of like columnar tree. You know, I've seen like some of those big warehouses, like in the South Brunswick area, they have this huge warehouse, they put some like columnar type of tree, like ginkgo or something, that
So-
breaks up the building, but it's planted closer to the building, you know, not the street landscaping, but, you know, whatever, 10 feet off the building.
Something
you
that'll
know,
be
they could do
25
something.
feet tall
Actually,
eventually.
that would work well. You know, depending on, with the 28-foot spacing between the pilasters, if you put a tree like that between each of those bays, then it starts to work with the architecture of the building.
Maybe a combination of that. I would recommend maybe some fake windows, make it look more like storefront type of look.
I think they understand the trees, they understand the concern, they're
They'll
going to
come up with
look
something.
at it. I don't know if they can do it on the fly here right now, but I think they get, you know, where the board's going.
You can't do trees on the fly.
Okay,
We can do buildings, but not trees.
those are our recommendations.
Okay, so we'll take a look at that, and maybe, I think you're gonna have us come back anyway on some of the things, so maybe we'll come back with a updated drawing on that.
Mr. Muniz, how long do you think you need to, you know, respond to the issues that have been raised today?
Architecturally, I can, whenever your next meeting is.
So a month, okay. I'm just trying to think what the date is. And I think that you have some meetings that are kind of crowded coming up? Or do I have the wrong board?
We can probably bring you in on March 21st.
Just make sure I'm not somewhere else that night?
Just to clarify, it's building D that we're going to concentrate on, is that correct?
Yes.
Well, does the other one that's similar to it, just, not those two, the other one,
Different architecture.
Which one is that?
the set,
Yeah.
yeah, the one facing the street that's behind Mulligan's, or is Mulligan's pretty much blocking most of that building?
You can see, if you go back to,
The existing multi-purpose building, oh wait,
all right, so what you see here is building A, that's proud of building D. So building D sets back.
mhm.
So that would be the facades on these. These have the big louvers, which are actually an architectural element. And then this is the office building with the canopies and the stone entry.
And the color scheme that you're showing is depicting what is going to eventually be there?
I can give you that.
Is this a new exhibit?
Yes.
Oh, okay. You probably want to know what we're up to, Ron?
A12.
A12.
There are 3 copies you can. This shows the configuration of the wall panels and roof panels. It shows you the color palette that we're going to be in. Testing around 3 metal samples.
Yeah, so it's close.
There's a gray, that is the roof. There's a tan, that is the wall panel. And the red, it's a colonial red, would be the windows and doors. And there's a picture of the stone in the packet that I handed out.
We still have to mark it because we're passing it around, so this will be A13.
Yeah, I think it was.
Is this all 8?
You said A13?
Correct.
there was one other comment that,
Well, that's going around. Mr. Muniz, was the 21st okay?
yes,
Okay.
I'll need an extension of time.
of course.
You want to put it on the record to the end
Yes,
of
we'll
March?
extend the time to what date?
End of March?
End of March, March 31st?
Thank you.
I'll send you a letter.
That's fine, thank you.
Anybody else got any comments?
I have a question.
Yes?
When does the environmental commission meet?
Next Tuesday.
We only have one meeting a month, so it's the second Wednesday in March.
Second Wednesday in March.
So it's about the 15th, somewhere around there, 14th,
It
15th?
is the
Looking it up.
13th.
And you'll have the Fire Bureau question worked out?
Yeah, I think we have, well, apparently we don't know where the 30 feet's supposed to be, so we'll have to
Okay.
figure out where the comment came from.
Scucciero?
Okay, so the application of Northeast Remsco Construction, SP-830-A3, be carried to the board's March 21st, 2019 meeting, beginning 7 o'clock here at Town Hall in the main meeting room. There will be no further notice to property owners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you keep the exhibits or
Okay.
you want me to keep them?
Keep the exhibit.
Do we have any reason to go into executive session?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to adjourn? Second. All in favor?
Aye.